5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, boys. Podcast number 19.
19.
It's going down.
So I was wrong. It's 19.
It is 19. I think it's 19.
We're going with 19.
I'll have to edit that out if it's not right.
All right, here we go. It's episode 18. Just in case you need to use that one.
It's going to get to a point where I stop talking about what episode it is because who cares?
Episode 2. This is the second time I've been on.
It's kind of like
absolutely.
It's how McDonald's went to like billions and billions served instead of to keep updating the number.
Yeah.
Remember that when it used to be like, 99 million and billion. Now it's just billions.
Now we just wait till we get to the next billion and we just mark it down,
No, it just says billions.
Billions.
So until trillions.
Yeah,
then
it'll change to trillions.
That'll be like 3 years.
Yeah.
That's true, right?
Probably pretty close.
So we got Joe Amorino back again.
How's it going?
And now he's coming back as an author.
Yes. Self-published.
That's okay.
Here's the book. Yes.
So go ahead. Give your book a plug.
It's called If You Gave a Gay a Grindr, and you can buy it at reallygaybooks.com. That's my website. I love it. I also made merch. So there's like cell phone cases. So like,
well, we're gonna get into that because I got some funny stuff for you on that.
Yeah.
So as always, I got Brett Dumas at the helm and helping us out today. And Joe, it's really good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
And I'm really proud of you for doing this. I know what it's like to start something from nothing and to see where it's come and to see you where you've come with your book and how happy that makes you and the support that I see you getting. That really brings a lot of joy to my heart for you.
Oh, thank you.
So you know how much I love you. This is just a great in addition, who knows what that can spawn off with,
Hopefully it goes viral and then the sequel. I've half written the sequel. So like I hope I get the opportunity / money to make a second one, or like a publisher, would like to, and then I don't have to front all the money by myself. But
I know about
and you already
that.
have the perfect website. Like I thought you were referring like people to a website that just carries predominantly gay books, but it's yours. So
it's
you like
mine.
the sky's the limit there.
Yeah, I was like, nobody owns this. $14? Yes.
He's like, tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
tick,
I'm
done.
gonna get home and buy every like really gay whatever URL.
So walk us through the start of the book. Like, what was your the reason for starting the book again? So people who didn't catch you on your first podcast.
Yeah, so, I mean, if anybody knows me, they know how ADHD kind of crazy and wacky I am. And I was on Grindr, and I saw a friend of mine on Grindr, and I messaged him. Like, this is the start. And I messaged him. I was like, what's up, slut? And he was like, nothing, ho. And then we just started bitching about like Grindr and guys on Grindr and like what people are like, and not necessarily on the app, but like what it's like to be around people in person when they're on it, and then they walk away and you're like, oh, I guess he's got a dick appointment, like, bye. So at one point, one of us said, oh, if you give a gay a Grindr, and I was like, that has to be a book, and I made it a book. Like, that's literally, I was like, it's happening, and then I made it happen.
He's writing stuff down. He's like, yep, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when your friend was he embarrassed that you found him on there?
No,
he doesn't care.
No, I mean, it's not a big pool, it's a bigger pool in Boston than I'm sure there is out here in Palmer. But like, most people. Or you've seen them enough times out in public that you're like, have I slept with you? Did I see you at a club? Or just on Grindr 500 times?
Do you have to? No, obviously I'm not on the app, but is it like Tinder where you
No,
swipe
there's
right?
no swiping.
You just go right for it.
You just like, if you're like, that torso looks delightful, you tap it and you can send them a wink. And there's different winks now. There used to just be like one, and it was like a little,
like a little,
a little fire thing. And now there's like a devilly wink if you want to like hook up with them, and you can send a bubble that says hi if you just want to chat. Everybody just sends the fire though because it's the first one. You just boop.
Just get right to the point, like boom. This is.
And then or it's called a tap. Sorry, I was like, and then people tap you.
So is that your gig? Is like, what's your thing when you find something that you like?
Well, I just go shopping. No, I usually awkwardly compliment people. Like, I'm like, you have really nice eyes. I really like your dog in the background. Like, I'm not good at flirting. So it's like what awkward people do in person, but typed out.
Yeah. We were talking before, if we were younger, like back when we were dating, we had to work really hard at it. Like if you saw somebody in the club, you had to formulate a plan. Like do I have to start talking to her friend to get in there? You know, there was always
should I bring a wingman?
Yeah,
whatever.
It was it could be really complicated sometimes, right? So I don't know if I would have had that back then, if things would have been different, or how easy that would have been. You know what I mean? Is it easier for you?
You just tap and send the fire thing, and
you do, but that doesn't mean anything's going to happen. So like it's a two-way street. So it can be easier. It's a time suck though. It's like, have you ever just scrolled through like YouTube or
like TikTok,
any social
Tumblr,
media.
TikTok, anything, and you're like, oh my God, 4 hours have passed.
Yeah.
That's what you do on Grindr sometimes, but it's a sea of torsos and then occasional faces. So it's like, oh, I just wasted half my day trying to find, looking at torsos and maybe find a good dick. So it's, you know, better, I think, or like different meeting somebody out at a bar or at a club or something real life. I vaguely remember what that was like.
Yeah, it's going to be weird for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You know, are bars even open still?
Bars are open.
Yeah.
If they serve food, is that still
They have
rule?
to serve food and sit down. So like the gay clubs in Boston are like not clubs right now, but the DJs still like play music and then everybody has to sit and eat. Or they'll put it on RuPaul's Drag Race or something like that. Yeah. But I'm just hoping this ends soon-ish, like by the summer, I hope, or at least we're all vaccinated, or most of us are, so that clubs can open up, because I don't know how nightlife is going to survive if not.
I don't know what nightlife even is anymore. Like, to me, 9 o'clock, I'm done for the night.
I'm 6:30 and I'm like, it's midnight. Good night. Like the sun set an hour ago.
Yeah. I stay up late. I'm midnight every night.
Are you really?
Yeah, but you know, going out was it was a thing of the past for me. It was a special occasion.
Yeah.
You know, prior to even things being shut down, you know, once a month, maybe twice a month, which I think was even a lot for probably a lot of people our age.
Yeah.
You know, go out and close a bar, you know, and
it still amazes me that you are the way you are now versus when we were kids.
What do you mean?
You were so outgoing. And for you to always say, you know, when you first brought up that you're an introvert, I'm like, what? You know, that's not how I always remembered you. You know what I mean? Even when we saw each other a couple times after school and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's, you
Were
know.
you on drugs as a kid?
No.
It's like that can
that
change.
happened later.
Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, no, I think it was always there. You know, I think I kind of just forced myself out of my comfort zone, maybe because it's what's expected.
Sure.
And, you know, you don't make friends otherwise and stuff like that. But I think as I got older and I was able to, you know, then I got into different careers, you know, because I went from being forced to interact with people every day because you're in school, you know, and then you get put into jobs. And, you know, I went almost immediately into retail. So
right,
you can't make money in retail unless you're talking to people. And it was like later on where I started kind of discovering, you know, how much more I liked not talking to people.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, wow, I'm like, actually, you know, I can drink as much at home. And that sounds kind of bad. I'm just trying to use it as an example of like going out to a bar versus staying home, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I'm not nearly as exhausted, you know? And again, that's a bad example. It makes me sound like I'm just pounding beers back home. But, you know, in anything that I would do, like, I just want to be home. You know, I don't want to, you know, interact with crowds of people and stuff like that. It's like anxiety inducing, you know, again, not anxiety inducing, but exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, I always welcome a good conversation and, you know, to fraternize with people, but, it takes a lot out of me. Like,
sure.
You know, especially if it's new people and, you know, and in large groups, if it's, you know, people I'm comfortable with, I've known you for 20 years, 25, 30 years, whatever it is now, with you, you know, it's fine. But otherwise but anyway, we're here to talk about Joe.
I know,
so.
but it's just
That is anxiety. Though.
Yeah.
yeah. But Joe definitely relates because when we had him on the podcast the first time, it was about mental health and coming out, and all those things are kind of tied. It was a real struggle for you,
Yep.
to do that, and to hear your success story and how you finally made it through all that. That's huge because a lot of people don't, and they're still in the closet and they're fighting that fight. And I don't know what that's like. And I told you when we first came on, if we can help one person be that person they want to be in life, whether if it's coming out or maybe writing a book or whatever it is that you
Do it.
get mental health checkups and handle stuff like that. Those are important things. And this is one of the goals of the podcast is I love coming out here and joking around and stuff like that too. But also if we can help somebody in the meantime, that's huge. Keep clearing my throat. I gotta stop doing that. That's one of the worst things I do on this thing. And when I watch these things over, and I'm like, oh. Yep, that's
Nice.
not good in the car hearing that with the sound system. So let's walk us through the steps it takes to start a book from beginning into where you are now. So if anybody out there is really kind of
I have a bunch of
contemplating
questions about it. I'm curious.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I can walk you through how I did it.
Yep, absolutely.
I am not an expert. I am still flying by the seat of my pants, and I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing when I stared, but I did it.
But then here you are.
Here it is. Through luck and fortune, I feel like those games, those old ass games where you'd like put a marble in a hole and you'd watch it hit all the sticks on the way down, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, I hope it wins."
Is that Kerplunk?
It's like Kerplunk.
Yeah, well, I kerplunked.
All right.
Like that's what
Oh
happened.
no, Kerplunk is the one with the big thing of.
Oh, that's and the
Yeah, it's more like Plinko. Like,
Plinko, that's what it
yeah,
was. Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
That thing. That's what I did, and I won the lottery, and the book happened. But the first thing I did was write it. So I wrote this. It's a short book because it would have been longer, but I had to pay the artist to illustrate it, and I had to pay per illustration, and I didn't have more money, so I was like, "That's what it is.
Yep.
10 it is." So because it was $150 per illustration. So
Oh, wow.
Oh shit.
yeah, wasn't cheap. It's not like crazy expensive.
They're good
but
illustrations though.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, they
he's
are. Yeah,
incredible.
they are.
He is absolutely incredible. I am hopeful that we will work on multiple projects in the future together as well. But I wrote it in the notes app on my phone, and I was like, okay, now I need an illustrator. And I have a lot of friends. Like my whole goal for this book was to be as in the queer community as possible. So I know a few queer artists in New York City. I know some other ones around the country, and I was like, who can I get? So I asked a friend of mine that does beautiful, beautiful marker illustrations. But he was like, I don't have time, but I can't wait to see the book. And I was like, cool. What am I going to do now? And I was scrolling through Instagram because social media, and Sam Smith, the singer,
Oh, that's
they
right. Yeah.
posted this illustration of an ass, and it was the most beautiful ass I'd ever seen. So I was like, who did that? And I clicked, and I went to Javier's profile, and he only had 27,000 followers. I was like, that's, probably a decent amount of them came from Sam Smith thing. So let's check it out. So I sent him a message, and I was like, how much would it cost for you to illustrate a book for me? And he was like, oh, it depends on how many illustrations. And that's how that ball got rolling. But we worked something out. I sent him the money, and then it took him probably between 7 months and a year to get it completely done. But it was really involved in collaborative throughout most of the process. He'd do sketches, and he'd send me the sketches, and there was only one page that I was like,
So you pre-send them basically what you wrote.
Yeah,
and then
I
you
sent
tried
him
to
what I
line
wrote.
up the illustrations,
Yeah.
with, so they fit in. Okay.
Exactly. He brought it to life. I can't imagine.
Yeah, no, it works perfectly together.
Yeah, I was
does.
like, this is what it's meant to be. But it was a really cool process. He's a really, really nice guy. But the other thing that I wanted that was really important to me with this book too is that the people portrayed in it were very diverse. So I wanted different colored men, different sized men. I didn't want it to just be what Grindr unfortunately kind of currently is. So Grindr, we talk about homophobia a lot, or at least, I don't know, gay people do. and we deal with that, and we talk about like what we deal with, but we don't necessarily talk about the internalized homophobia within our community, because there's plenty. And then the racism and sizeism that happens too. So like people, like, they're a lot better now. I think Grindr is actually like booting people that do this, but there literally were people on there that were like, no fats, no femmes, no Asians, no blacks, no
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, so you want a German man. That's okay. You're not in Germany. So it, it's very white and very fit. So I wanted this to be like, a commentary on like the kind of annoying things that people do, but also like in an ideal world, it would be happening to all of us. We'd all waste all our time on Grindr.
Yeah.
Now, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so the first thing is you said, very white, very fit, right? Well, it wasn't the first thing you said, but it's the first question I want to ask. Do you think that's because that's just what's expected of the people on there, or it's more of like a self-esteem thing? Like maybe there's people that don't want to put themselves on there.
Oh, it's a self-esteem thing. There are other apps, and the other apps cater to different body types, basically.
Yeah.
Like there's one called Scruff, and it's for like scruffier, burlier dudes.
All right, so now I know where I would probably
Scruff
end up.
is for both of you. Yeah. And then there's another one that whose name Growler, I want to say, something like that I can't remember, and I think that one's for like more for bears. Bears are like heavy set, burly dudes.
That was me last year. I was a bear.
Yeah. So like, unfortunately, they kind of fall into these different categories, and Grindr has ended up like, I mean, it's one of the oldest ones, so there's that, but I don't know, it's just really white, which is sad. That's, I mean, depending on where you live, that might be what you're like stuck with, but even in the city, it's pretty darn white.
Yeah, but I love what you did with the diversity. I think that's really important, especially where we are now. Inclusion is something I think that it's so important. You're doing your part and making sure you're including that, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure people who read this. So walk us through the book. What exactly are they going to find when they open the book and they start reading it?
So each page is kind of its own scenario. So they will find something. So like page 1, if I touch the book, is this going to screw everything up? I'm like,
people have already seen it now. You can touch the book.
I was like, if I move this, is somebody's OCD going to go crazy?
Just in case.
So page 1 and 2 are right here. I don't know if people can see that because I can't see that screen from here.
Yeah, it'll be tough to see probably, but
all right. Well, I'll walk it up later. So the first page says, if you give a gay a Grindr, he'll procrastinate all day, and it's like this cute little chunky guy stuck on his phone in bed, laptop's on. It's dark out now. He's been there all day just trying to find a trick, and didn't happen. And then the second page says he'll sit and scroll and tap. He'll say he likes to play. Because what also happens on there is people are all talk. I don't know if that's right. People are all talk, and they'll be like, yeah, let's get together, blah, blah, blah. And then like no follow through ever. So you're like, oh.
The ghosting.
Yeah. Like not even. Ghosting would be better because
really?
It would be a less of a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's like if you were at a bar and you talked to the girl's friend, and then you got into the friend group and you bought her like 3 drinks, and she was really flirty and she was dancing with you, and like she took you in a dark corner, but then when it was time to leave, you couldn't find her anywhere. And you're like, oh.
Been there, done that.
You're like, that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's not normal.
No, it's not supposed to be, so that's on you. But it's not fun. So that's why that second page is there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes into it like there's an illustration of like 2 guys that are basically on a date, or they could be friends hanging out. But in my interpretation, they're on a date, and one of them is literally on Grindr on the date because people do that. Or one is about like not really wanting to commit because they're always looking for, what's next, because that's a thing with all dating apps. Like it was bad with people when it was like you meet a person in person and then you're like, what else might be out there?
Right.
But with apps, it's like, well, there's 18 really hot guys I'm talking to, so I'll go on a date with you, but I don't know if I'll like one of those 17 other guys that I am talking to. So I'm just like, keep you at arm's length. And that's kind of what happens. So
it's like 17
you
dates
can't
will
just,
circle
like,
back.
You get something good, like, I'm going to turn this off, going to deactivate my account. Like, I'm cool with this. I'm going to ride this out.
yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, I guess.
No, not. It does eventually, sometimes for some people, but it
happens less often.
Very less often. Even with straight people, like people will say that they got off their Tinder, but if you get into their phone, they're not off their Tinder.
I deleted mine a long time ago. No, I'm only kidding.
I never had a Tinder.
I never had one either. Like I said, if back in the day, if we would have had access to that kind of technology.
Yeah, I mean, we were still on dial-up internet when I met my wife. So it's like,
I can remember going down the hallway because I grew up with 3 sisters, having that phone cord that was the length of the hallway, bring it all the way down to my room, shut the door so I could talk to somebody, and then hopefully that they weren't long distance, so my parents wouldn't get hit with a long distance charge.
No, I couldn't do long distance.
So that was
they had to call me if there was long distance. My dad was not going to stand for that.
I just called people collect, or like the calling
right.
cards. Do you
I remember those. Yeah,
you'd go to the gas station and you'd like. It felt so sketchy, and you'd buy this calling card, and you'd have to dial 800 different numbers, and then you'd be like,
codes and stuff.
Hi, Julian. Like, it was so scratchy.
Can you guys hear me okay with
for
some reason my earphones are not working well.
Do you have the...
Yeah, I got that right on the right there.
All right.
It's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on.
So, Joe, you said there's a lot of homophobia within the queer community. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so... there's just like generic homophobia, even though we're all on this somewhere on that like spectrum of sexuality.
Yeah.
But it's typically internalized homophobia. So internalized homophobia is when a gay person or a gay man, gay woman, anybody who's, not straight, has been conditioned to the point that they hate every stereotypical aspect of somebody who is gay. So like an internally homophobic gay guy could be somebody, and there are gay guys who just like the outdoors and don't like anything stereotypical, and they're not against people who do. Internalized homophobia is gay guys that judge more feminine gay guys.
Like, oh, you're too gay.
Yeah, like, oh, God, you're way too gay for me. Or like, oh, like I could take you home,
That's
but I could never date you.
So
like all kinds of stuff.
So it's like kind of, and I'm just.
It's like misogyny, but
yeah. So it's like
all the penises.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was perfect. That was a perfect explanation. Then.
Yeah. So it's a big thing, and people are getting better. The younger generations are a lot better about it in general, and gender identity, but. Like people in their 30s and above have a little hard time, I think, dealing with who they are and what they wanted and what their dads didn't want and what they've suppressed and now what they expect other people to suppress because they had to do it, so other people should do it too because they had to suffer.
It's like a whole scale of like level of acceptance and internal anxiety and issues. Yeah. So the younger, the more the better they are with it.
Right. The more open and
generally it's more accepted and continues to be so.
Yeah. And I mean, even if it's not with the rest of society, I find that every generation that comes out is like, well, I don't care what you think. And they write their own little book on it. Yeah. So it's really kind of inspiring. Like I've talked to people and they're like younger, like not kids, but like 19, 20, and I'm not. So like I'll be chatting with them and they're like, oh yeah, my girlfriend, and then I had a boyfriend, and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, so you're bi? And they're like, oh no, I'm just pan. Like it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh cool. Like there's so much more open and fluid. Not everybody, but like if someone is attracted to multiple genders, they typically don't feel the need to hide it nearly as much as when I was growing up and when you guys were growing up and beyond that. I mean, there were like, homosexuality is nothing new. It's been around forever. If you ever read a thing and he was like, his best friend John lived with him, that was his boyfriend.
Right.
Like, they will explain away in history that they were like really good friends.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's documented like through Roman times and even like, in ancient civilizations like Pompeii, like it's a documented thing, but
yeah, especially back when we were kids, that was kind of, you were kind of shunned if you come out as being gay. You know, we
Even,
had
I mean, yeah, it was even just slightly effeminate as a
Right.
guy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you definitely were treated differently for sure.
Yep.
You know, and I can't think of, you know, anyone that kind of like, you know, was out or, you know, openly admitted, you know, to being gay. Like, even
a
maybe
little bit after high school.
probably
I think
late
they
into high
came
school.
Out, yeah,
and, you know, and now it's in a, you know, and I commend anybody who, you know, even express themselves, you know, to, you know, to even a certain degree, but, you know, now it's like a completely normal thing. And I think that's awesome, you know, on both parts, you know, especially from the, you know, people who would normally, you know, shun the people coming out. I mean, you know, it's like we already talked about, it's way more accepted.
yeah.
Still, you know, not to any spectacular degree, but, you know.
Yeah. every like 5 to 10 years, it gets a bit better. So
Yeah. When Joe was on last time, we talked about, you know, what men are supposed to be like, quote unquote, men are supposed to be like. And, you know, to know, like what Joe was talking about, I can still be a man. I can still cry. I can still smell good. I can't do my hair anymore, but, you know, there was a time where I could do my hair. You know, Joe had a beautiful head of hair at one time too.
yeah, R.I.P.
But, you know, I'm glad he brought that up because, you know, crying is a normal thing. And I think we need to normalize that instead of coming down on someone, especially if they're male, and saying, you know, if you're a guy, you can't cry. So, you know, I think that's horse shit, and it makes you feel better. You know, there's absolutely no, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I think we're getting better with that as time goes on.
Toxic masculinity is, I don't know if it's necessarily getting better, but it's being brought to the surface more, and people are calling it out a lot more.
Right.
Like, there's still plenty of things that cater to it, like dude wipes. I don't know if you guys.
I have dude wipes upstairs.
Yeah, I'm like, you can't wipe your ass with a regular wipe. You have to have one that says dude on it.
Well, no, I have.
So
Well, they're they don't say dude wipes, but they're like for dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are, like, literally, there's a brand called Dude Wipes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's just baby wipes, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's probably like,
Yeah.
you know, sandalwood or something instead of.
yeah, after 3 kids, if there's baby wipes around.
Yeah. You just, yeah. you know
It
what I mean?
doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the
So
roll runs out, just because baby wipes are expensive and toilet paper, it's the only
Yeah.
reason, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to buy something because it's targeted.
I even used the ball cream. You know that Fresh Balls.
Yeah, not.
I wouldn't have used that years ago. You know what I mean?
no, and
Because
it's good that it's there, and like, but that is something that's like made for the anatomy of the body. So like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But
But
like,
it goes back to that whole like, I want to look good, I want to feel good. You know,
So, you know, that's interesting. Would you say that that it leans toward toxic masculinity, or do you say that's just marketing? So like, and I don't know if that's considered toxic masculinity, that like, I won't just use baby wipes or like some kind of, you know, feminine wipe, or just like whatever's in the bathroom and I need to wipe, you know, and let's get to the, what is it? Ball wash or ball?
yeah, some kind of ball cream.
Yeah. Yeah. Sack
It's like
wash,
Fresh
whatever.
Balls. That's what Fresh
Fresh
Balls. I
balls,
think that's
you
what
know,
it's
like
called.
that. It's just, you know, maybe not a feminine scent, and I just don't want to put, I don't know what, boy, I care what my balls smell like so much, I guess, but, you get where I'm going? Like, is it toxic masculinity, or is it just good marketing? Like, hey, we make an identical product for, you know, the feminine side. This one smells a little different because it's for guys.
all right, so when it's fragrance thing, that could be a preference thing anyway. Like,
Yeah.
there are plenty of women who wear men's cologne.
Yeah.
There are plenty of men who wear women's fragrances. It just depends on what you like. So fragrance,
It's a bad example, maybe.
it's not a bad. It's like everything is a bad example because it all is toxic masculinity. Because when it comes to items and apparel and things that we use and tools, they're objects. They're not female or male. They're not inherently anything until we decide and society puts a label on it, and then everybody follows through. So like blue and pink, like they're just colors. They're both just colors. Green, yellow, that's a color too. But we've assigned genders to those.
That
So
is
now
true.
it's like,
Yeah,
oh no,
that's-
he
that's
can't
a
wear a
really
pink
good
this.
example.
He can't.
Yeah.
She can't wear a blue that. And it's like, it's a fucking color. God.
Yeah.
So one of the easiest cases for me to bring up is like razors, right? Men have like the Gillette Mach 5 Quadro, whatever. There's so many different brands. women have the same exact razor. It's just a different color.
Right.
And sometimes the price is different between them.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, it's a blade. It is a sharp blade that I'm running across my body, probably privately. So who cares what color it is? Like, oh, mine's orange and blue because it's for a dude.
Right.
Like that happens all the time, and it's across everything. Like there are like and I mean, shampoos need to be geared towards men in a sense that men should shampoo and not just use body wash or bar soap on their head, but like there are so many things that are like marketed to one of the like binary genders, and I'm like, you don't need to make two. Like everybody could just use one if they weren't so stupid. So that's what kind of toxic masculinity is. It's inherent, and it's drilled into us. So it's not anything that like somebody wakes up one day and they're like, I don't like this. It's you learned it from whoever you learned everything from, and they learned it from, you know, their parents and so on and so forth, and like what a man's supposed to be like, and like boy toys and girl toys and like Barbie versus an action figure. They're all dolls. An action figure is a fucking doll.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
A doll. He might have a gun, but he's still a doll.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember when I was a kid, my sisters had Barbies. I had my G.I. Joes.
Oh, I
We
love
always
my
played
G.I.
together.
Joes.
You know what I mean? And you never had G.I. Joes?
Oh, I loved my G.I. Joes.
Joe's was always naked.
Yep. Oh, my Barbies were too, though. Like my dolls were like a nudist colony.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
had Legos.
Yep.
I was no dolls of any sort, I
You
guess.
didn't have the little people Legos? You didn't take like the girl hair and slap it on one of them? I'm just kidding.
The little dudes, yeah.
But it's true, though. Yeah. I mean, it's.
But I can't remember if it probably 99% was male assigned.
Yep.
Legos. Yeah, I don't very rarely, and it was really just the only difference was the hair, because now they give them with the dress silhouette, you know,
Yep.
like you would see on a restroom. Then they were all straight, so it could have just been completely gender neutral, I guess.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was, but they were
But
masculine.
they had assigned hair. Yeah.
Assigned hair. Yeah.
And then, I mean, all of the, so like thinking back to classic Legos, like all of the things you could build were masculine too. Like,
Yeah, there weren't any like princess castles.
No,
or,
no. It
No.
was tanks and warships and.
yeah. And
No,
like
this is way before
Star
that.
Wars stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and like,
Even before that, fire stations. This is
Oh,
one.
that's
I'm
right.
talking like I'm gonna date myself here, but all the bricks were red.
Oh, yeah. And they were big, too, at that point. They were probably
No,
the big,
no, they're
you guys
still
saw
they
the
had
the
the
little
little,
ones.
no,
Still the
they
little
would
ones.
still
Yeah.
feel like a bullet wound to the foot.
yes, and I still have.
Yeah, you didn't leave
a
those
small
things hanging
percentage of
around.
those. But yeah, all red and yes, very, masculine. I guess, you know. Of course, you don't think about it because, like you said, it's just always.
That's how
You
it
know,
was.
Yeah,
in
that's
there.
just what,
Yeah.
how it's presented to you. So you just accept it that way. So it's,
Do you know, a lot of like older people, and I still hear this to this day. It makes me laugh, but you know, like in our day, we only did it like this, and you know, I think every generation, like you said, that's coming up the ranks now is, you know, the older generation fights them because they think that they're bringing all this nonsense to the table. When actuality, we're changing things for the better. You know,
it's called progress for a reason. It
Yeah.
progresses.
well, you can see like when all the different genders started coming out, right? A lot of the older people are freaked out because they're like, I think some of them freaked out because they just didn't know how to address somebody if they didn't know how to address them. But it's so easy, you know.
Mhm.
You ask them what the pronouns are, and they'll tell you.
And if you don't know, they, them is pretty safe.
Pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I even had to practice a little bit, and because the last thing I want to be is rude or insensitive, and you know me long enough to know that.
Yeah.
So even that was a little bit of a kicker to me because I wasn't used to that either. You know, I've had people who I knew that were gay or lesbian, or my friend Jeff transitioned a few years ago. I showed you pictures of him. He's absolutely
Her.
gorgeous. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah,
her-
it's just
Her dead name is Jeff. She's
Yep. It's weird because I before he transitioned, I knew him for so long as
Yeah.
one person, you know, and when he transitioned to Jen, she's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely
That's
gorgeous.
that's a hard adjustment to make. Like
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, if you've known someone for X amount of years as Jeff, you know, and
Yeah.
It's more of just a habit. It's not an an objection to what happened, I guess.
And
It is and it isn't, depending on the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But a lot of it is subconscious retaliation too sometimes. So
denial.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you if you have a trans friend and you call them by their dead name and it's been 6 years since they transitioned and you've known them, then you gotta work on that, because there's a reason why you're calling them by their dead name. And it's the trauma that is associated for trans people with their dead gender, dead name, all that stuff is really, really strong. So
is that how they think about it? Like, that person's now dead?
they're dead.
There's,
Yep, gone.
There's no connection that
R.I.P.
helps them.
I mean, there's, the experiences they had still happened, but
Right.
like that version of them it's like a Pokemon evolution.
Right.
If you can look at Pikachu and then look at Raichu, the one that's after it, and call them two different things, then you can call a person who transitioned
Sure.
two different names.
And she lost a lot. She lost her kids. Her kids don't speak to her anymore.
Really?
She ended up getting a divorce. She had a lot of challenges, and to see how she persevered through all this is amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. She was and I think she still is a nurse. So she has that very caring, and I can't imagine the torture she had mentally all those years, knowing full well that this is, where she wanted to be.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky I didn't have that torture, because I can't, and I'm being selfish, but I can't imagine what that's like for somebody to fight that the entire life. And then thank God she finally had that release, and she was able to, move on for the next half of her life to be where she wants to be. So, going back to that whole thing about how our dads tell us, you got to be this, that, and the other thing. And, I'm glad I don't have to be like that every day, because even that's torture. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to go around and I want to wear, I wear a gender neutral cologne that we sell at work.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, I love the smell, and I'm not against wearing a cologne that if some people might think it's feminine, if I like it, I'm wearing it. You know what I mean? But if I was going through a transition or I was coming out, that torture to hide, I mean, that was very moving when you said your story before. And I know your story, and we talked about it before, but to hear you talk about it then, I was getting upset because I don't want to see you hurt. I could see the hurt coming through as you were trying to tell your story. And it's a multifaceted thing. You didn't have just your dad you had to worry about.
It was everything.
It was the friends in high school, all these different
every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So because to a different degree, you deal with the same thing. It's expectations, right? So if your dad had expectations of you and you needed to live up to them, but you were nerdy, but he really wanted you to play sports, it's that feeling quantified 10 million times, because not only is it I'm nerdy and it's not what my dad wants, but you're the polar opposite and the complete negative, worst possible thing to that person. That was when I was younger, my dad's that was the biggest insult he could say. So I was oh shit, that's me. What do you do now? And we're good now, but it was rough, because you're I'm never gonna never mind I'm kind of different and I don't think I'll meet some of those expectations. I was I'm never gonna meet any of them, and forcing yourself to try is a whole different brand of torture, and that's where internalized homophobia comes from. Right. But it's stupid.
So, and I didn't catch your first episode, and I'm sorry. So when did you think something was different?
Oh God, I shot out of the womb gay.
Yeah. And when did you come out? And then when did you come out to your parents? Because I know that's different sometimes.
Yes. So, I mean, if you see home videos and I'm in them, my cousin, we didn't have a camera, but a bunch of my cousins did. I'm usually frolicking in the background, and I'm oh, nobody knew, huh? So, I was really, really feminine and wild from the day one. But I didn't come out until probably it was 8th grade, but I didn't even want to come out. It just kind of like I told who I thought was my best friend about the guy that I had a crush on, and then she ran and told him, and then everybody told the entire school, and then I was out. And then after that happened, I was like, well, fuck, I have to tell my mom now. So I told my mom, and like I did what people in my generation did, and there's such a I could talk about this for like 600 years. So biphobia is a huge thing too. There are many people within the gay community and without the gay community that are convinced that bisexual people don't exist and that they're gay and they're just on their way, like, which is not true.
So you're saying gay people are?
Oh yeah, if a guy's like, oh, I'm bi, gay men are just like, oh my god, you're just gay. But there are plenty of bisexual people out there. So but the reason why I feel like gay men think that way is because when we come out, that's usually what we start with, because it's safer, because women are still on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the card's not gone. There's just another one next to it. But for people who literally like that is their life, it's not fair to do that too. And it's not fair to assume that they don't exist just because I used as a lie doesn't mean that somebody else is.
So do you date women when you were in school?
I mean, I was a child, but yes,
right.
I had girlfriends.
Yep.
We talked on the phone all night. We watched Buffy. Charmed.
Pass notes to each other.
I had, I made out with a couple girls while I was in school that I was dating, and that was it. And I was like, this is something. So like, it just like, that was that. And then when I came out to my mom, she was like, well, have you tried anything with a girl yet? And I was like, well, no, I'm 13 or 12. And she was like, okay, well, maybe don't decide until you do. And I was like, it's not a decision, but okie dokie. Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know it. Like, I remember in my elementary school crushes, like I had crushes on boys in elementary school. So it's, as long as I've been functionally like, oh, that person's attractive, I've been gay. But then, so I came out to my mom, and then my school knew, and it was awful for like a year. And towards the end, it was getting better. And then we moved to the next hick town next door, and I had to come in all over again and like come out. But I came out to my dad when I was 14. And it was like in this weird roundabout way, but we were all on a camping trip, like my 3 stepsisters, my dad, like my stepsisters' families, because they were like 10 to 15 years older than me, and like everybody, right? We're all out there, and my stepmom and I were really close, and I was like, I'm gay, Laura. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, do not tell Dad. Like, I will tell him someday, but do not tell Dad. But of course she told him immediately. He didn't say anything the rest of the trip, which, I mean, must have been very difficult for him. Yeah. But then I was home, and I had a boyfriend at the time. So, like, I was 14. My boyfriend was 17 or 18. He was a senior when I was a freshman. We were the only 2 gay people in school. So that's, it just happened. But we're sitting there playing video games, and the phone rings next to me, and I'm like, hello? And it was my dad, and he's like, Laura told me something. And I was like, oh, no, what? She told me you were gay. Is that true? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, she also said you had a boyfriend. Is that true? And I was like, uh-huh. Well, if I ever see him, I'm going to kill him, and then I'm going to kill you. Click. And I was like,
oh, really?
Thanks, Dad.
God,
there?
can you imagine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, that was
wow.
the extent, and then the hang up. And I was like, cool.
It's really interesting because, like, I don't remember my father ever like pushing macho things on me. I was always just do whatever. And obviously when I got the toys, it was the blue toys and not the pink toys.
Yeah.
And of course I can never imagine how my father might react. I don't think the only thing my father ever wanted was for me to do well in school. It was never like about the girls or, any of that stuff. It was always, 100% support, except when I didn't do well in school. It was really more about just,
your success.
Yeah, how intelligent
I
am supposed to be, and so I don't envy you for what you went through, but I am curious, as far as like what that would have been like, knowing how good I know my father is, like how that would have been handled, because it's
You might have just rolled with it. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different experiences that people have coming out. Like, and there's like National Coming Out Day is a day of the year. I can't ever remember which day it is, which is shame on me. But it's a day, and every year it happens, and then I'm like, oh, it's the day we all share our coming out story. And like there are some that I read that like the dad has accidentally seen the kid kissing his boyfriend and is like, oh no, and like writes him a note, and they're like, you don't have to pretend that he's just your friend, but you can't have any more sleepovers. Like, and like something like loving and caring, and like gives them a note like that. So like those are amazing experiences. And then there are plenty of people who get kicked out of their house and are homeless. So it's so varied, but you know, it's just, I don't know. I don't know why it's a thing. To me, it's not a thing. So I have a difficult time understanding why it's a thing to other people, because I'm like, it doesn't affect you. Like,
yeah, what's this? You know, that's. I'd like to get to the bottom of that, the root cause of. You know, it's got to be the way they were brought up, but I don't even like using it as an excuse, because it's really not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, okay.
The way I was brought up, I could have been another way, but I decided.
You're also brought up to believe in Santa Claus and the Easter
you know
Bunny.
what I mean?
So, yeah, what does you how does you being brought up impact or mandate the way you continue to think?
Well, that's the thing. It's
like,
the continuation. Exactly.
So
right.
like, okay,
yep.
You believe this because it was all you were taught until you were 12 or 13 or 18 or 20 or fucking 30, whatever, you know, but now here's the facts. This is how it is. You make your decision. It's a left or right in the road.
Yeah.
people don't like facts.
Oh, I know. We know that.
Or science.
So there's that.
You know,
but
it's your child. I can't imagine if my son or daughter came to me and said, you know, that they were gay and I shunned them in any way, shape, or form. I mean, shame on me for being a parent.
a lot of it stems from religious beliefs,
right,
and indoctrination and how people were brought up. So like if like my family is very like Roman Catholic or Christian, I think one side's one and one's the other. I don't know enough. I hated CCD, and I was like, I'm never going back, because they were like, women committed the original sin, and I was like, what'd you say about my mom? Like literally, I remember being like 6 and like steam coming out of my ears, and I got up and I yelled at the whoever taught it. I don't know if it was a priest or a nun or whatever, but I was like, my mom is the most amazing person on this whole planet, and she didn't do anything wrong. Bye. Like, and then I never went back. But like, depending on how you're raised, like if you're raised to believe like this is like, you know, a little time, and then you're in one of two places for the rest of eternity, and you think like if you happen to like boys and you're a boy, you're going to hell forever. Like, it's the fear of like the person that you love being damned or like condemned to some awful existence for the rest of their life that typically kind of starts the car, and then the car just goes. And it's just a really, I don't know, it's weird. So homophobia in general comes from like different things. So like there's the religious aspect and everything like that. There's also the, oh my God, am I gay? Well, I'm just going to be homophobic and overcompensate because like I had one dream once where I kissed a guy. So like there's all these different things.
That's the one that's more prevalent these days.
Yeah. So like people like freak out because, you know, maybe their parents were like, you're going to hell if you do this, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, oh no, I dreamt about it. I'm going to hell. Now I have to make up for it. So I'm going to, you know, come at everybody else. So it's just this really weird thing. And like the whole gay marriage shit that happened, like, it wasn't that long ago that it got legalized. Like, I remember I worked at a gay bar in Maine when Prop 8 up in Maine was a big thing, and like it didn't make it through, and it was ridiculous. And I was like, what?
I can remember here in Mass how it was, you know, there was a lot of people that didn't want that. And I can remember saying to myself, who gives a shit?
And Mass is one of the better states.
Yeah.
And imagine being like,
I can remember
in the Midwest or the South or
going down
where nobody likes anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're, well, we're not going to get into that. But
Yeah. But I was
Cookie
like,
cutter.
I couldn't grasp that of why that was such a big deal. Why were we giving this so much pushback?
Okay, I got to cut one
Yeah.
for 1 second. Forgot to turn the fish tank off.
You want to shut it off?
Yeah, it's all I can hear. So like I know it's going to come through probably.
There's a plug right behind the salt thing right there.
I find the burbling very comforting.
You probably won't hear it on the thing because it has a noise gate. So it usually only catches what's right here. But just in case, good call.
Here, and I'm I'm like, someone else got to listen to that. You know.
Peace and quiet. We always forget something. For sure. Oh, before I forget, coming out day is Monday, October 11th.
Oh, look at you. You got your laptop right there.
I do.
Yeah. So, which is nowhere near Pride, which is why I never remember when it is.
So when's Pride?
The summer. Like typically June, but it, depending on where you are, it can start in like May, and certain places have Pride festivals up until like September. It depends. Like Pride has turned into like an amazing thing, and it's all over the world. So I think that's why it's so staggered. So if people want to like literally go to every Pride, they basically can. Like New York Pride is one weekend. Boston Pride's usually the weekend before or after that.
Okay.
So like they stagger around each other. It's like the hive mind knows.
Sure.
And we just make sure that we can party at everyone. But like the first Pride was a riot. That's how Pride started. Like a trans woman chucked a brick because they were being discriminated against, and that's like, and then it turned into a huge riot. So like that's how Pride started, and people don't necessarily remember that or know that, and they just think it's a bunch of us walking around in like tiny clothes or no clothes or whatever, like because people do whatever they want at Pride, and it's like because it's the only place we can.
And where did that start?
Yeah.
Where did that happen?
New York City. Yep. Marsha P. Henderson, I believe, was her name.
Have you ever been to Pride in Northampton?
No, I have not.
Great time.
Yeah.
Been twice. Phenomenal time each time I've been. I love to see when people can finally be liberated, and you can actually feel it when you're there. I mean, it's so I used to work out there. That was part of my route with my last company. So when that parade came in, I was up there working. So I got one of my stops were right there on the street. I got food, and you can just feel the excitement. You can feel how liberating it is, and that makes me feel good to see people.
It's because
that way.
And this is going to be sad to say, but like, it's one of the very few times or places or spaces we feel totally safe.
Right.
So, like, that's why it seems so liberating, and like why people are like so carefree. It's like because that's where. And then after oh god, the club in Orlando, Pulse. After Pulse, right, it got really scary.
Sure.
Like I remember going Club Cafe in Boston is the one that I frequented the most. I probably lived there practically. And I remember like after Pulse, I was like, do I go out? Do I stay home? Because there were threats everywhere. There were like bomb threats at all different gay clubs, like crazy things everywhere. And I was like, what do I do? And I was like, you know what? If I die going and doing what I love, then I die going and doing what I love. So I went, like, because I'm not going to let the fear of something shove me back into any kind of box or closet.
So did they determine that was the motive behind Pulse?
Oh, no. Legally, that wasn't the motive at all. But yeah, that's absolutely what happened.
Yeah,
he was a repressed.
So he was repressed, and his religion was fighting with him in his head.
Okay.
He was going to show everybody,
He went there before that. Like,
so then that was like,
yeah,
that was his way of
but he was married to a woman.
Justifying himself, or, whatever.
Yeah.
In his head, he made that right by him going there, and he made it okay in his head that, that's what he was going to do. See, I didn't know that. We'll go back to another thing you said where it was, something that is talked about in the queer community is homophobia in general. Or you originally you said blanketed, like, this is what people talk about. And then you said, well, at least in the queer community, obviously not insinuating that, in the straight community, that's what we're talking about. And it may sound like a stupid question, but I'm curious to what extent is homophobia like still an issue and
within like queer on queer homophobia?
No, because we already talked about kind of that within.
So like
in the straight community, like you dealing, kind of.
It's still there.
Maybe it's a shitty parallel, but like racism would be, where you're being discriminated against because of your of your identity.
It still happens plenty, especially after the past 4 years. People have been very brazen and feel very comfortable with their hatred. So So it's a lot of it has come to the surface, but at the same time it was there. So there's a lot of me that I'm like, hate how much hate and like is festering, but I'm like, well, that was all underneath and now it's all at the top and somebody just has to pop the zit. So, but it's definitely still there. I remember when I worked at a salon full time, a guy came in and I was supposed to cut his hair and he was like, oh no.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he was like, I'll wait for a girl. And I was like,
so it's and I know it's there and it's always bizarre to me, but you know, and I'm sure you're, as much as you try to open your eyes, it's probably the same thing for you. Like when I go through life, like everybody's just this person in front of me, and you know, and I know it's there, but I have trouble like imagining that people are like that. And I know it as a fact. I've
seen it what he's talking about firsthand.
And I've seen it in action,
Yeah.
you know, before, but like on a percentage basis, it's, and I can't say it's hard to believe, but
we all live in our own little bubbles.
yeah.
So if your bubble doesn't really have any other, like any gay people in it, or maybe like one or two, the amount of homophobia you're going to directly witness is going to be minuscule because it doesn't happen all the time anymore. And if you only have two out of 20 friends that are gay, like how often are you there experiencing it with them? And they also probably don't tell you every time that it happens.
Right.
Just like women don't bring up every single time that men do something stupid
Right.
because they never stop talking. And it's interesting. It's almost like, I mean, to bring it to that same not parallel comparison, but racism. If you like, I lived in New Hampshire for a long time. Everybody's fucking white. So people are like, there's no racism. I'm like,
yeah,
there's no, but yeah, because you're all white. Like,
I actually had a guy argue with me online because he lives in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Okay.
Yeah.
The demographic in Newburyport is 98% white.
yeah,
And he was talking about how racism is not a problem in Newburyport.
Yeah.
it's not a problem because there's
No
not
kidding.
enough people of color to
Right.
to even experience it.
But let a colored person drive through that town and let me know, or stop at a diner and let me know what happens. But either way, I digress.
Yeah.
You know,
No, so like,
yeah, and I understand, but I guess it's not so much that the internet is unlimited, so I know it's a real thing, but I don't know, maybe it's just my own personal belief of just how I treat people, and I think part of it's just like I can't believe that people act like this, even though I know people act like this.
yeah, I mean, I understand that feeling because that's literally how I feel about people getting all bent out of shape about gender. I'm like,
Yeah.
How does that even matter? It doesn't affect you in any way. So, like, same thing with sexuality. Sexuality doesn't affect anybody but the person who's that, and hopefully the other person who's that with them. Like, it's just this. I don't know why people get so comfortable putting themselves in other people's business and dictating what other people should do with their lives. But I mean, homophobia in the U.S. is getting a lot better. In Canada, it's getting a lot better. There are a few countries that just this year legalized gay marriage, and even during, the pandemic, and it's like a celebration. But like, there's countries like Chechnya where they have concentration camps and are killing gay people. So
Oh shit.
yeah,
Yeah, we
and
talked
it's
about that last time,
nothing.
yeah.
Like, it's not on the news ever.
Oh no, that wouldn't be.
No.
Yeah.
But there was they're still active. They're still there. It's still really dangerous to be in Russia or Chechnya and be an open gay person or even gay. There are people who go on the apps as like a trap. So they will like entrap gay men and then kidnap them and bring them.
Basically like an old school lynching.
Yeah. So I was looking up some numbers here. It says today's report shows that hate crimes based on sexual orientation represent 16.7% of hate crimes, the third largest category after race and religion. The report also shows an uptick in gender identity-based hate crimes, rising from 2.2% in 2018 to 2.7% in 2009.
What's the second most?
Hate crime, it would be followed behind race and religion.
So you said race, religion was first, or is it
Race,
First and second.
religion.
And then, okay,
And
all right.
then-
So 1, 2, 3, race, religion, sexuality. Okay.
So those are disturbing numbers.
Based on gender identity too is very skewed and very weird
Right.
because trans people get killed at a much higher rate than gay people. Trans black women are the number one murder victim.
Now, do you think that's because, let's say, especially if you're passable, is that the terminology that they use? Let's say I'm a straight male, I see you passing, and then I get you home, and then all of a sudden I find out that, you know, you're not what you or not what I think that you were. You think they go into that instant rage, and that's where that happens?
I mean, that does happen. That's not it. Like, these are women that are known in their community, that are beloved in their community, that somebody who doesn't love anything about the community hones in on and kills. It's so, like, they're being targeted.
What's the point of difference between like a gay man or a passable, or I don't want to use that word, just that someone who's like transgender? What's the...
I don't know why, but it's even worse to people. I'm like, okie dokie. I think probably because of, honestly, it's probably tied to toxic masculinity and misogyny, because why would a man ever want to be less than a man and become a woman and all kinds of crazy ass shit?
Yeah, I think, you know, especially if you bring up that statistic where it's black, trans, women. So, I mean, now you got a whole bunch of different issues that might, not issues with that person, but issues with the person who's creating the crime, where it's, you know, so correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes a lot of homophobic people may also be racist and vice versa.
Yes.
Okay. So now you got two issues with one person.
Well, and homophobia can be really, really prevalent in certain demographic communities. So if that woman happens to live in a predominantly black area that is also predominantly homophobic or transphobic, then she's screwed and should get out of Dodge.
Yeah. So I'm reading this right here too. So you're absolutely right, Joe. That's actually becoming the most common hate crime, is what you just said.
Yep.
And for the fourth year in a row, there was a significant uptick in hate crimes with that community, and also the Latinx community. That's becoming a growing...
I think it's compounding people's phobias. So
increasing.
It's like, well, I don't like gay people, and I don't like trans people, and I don't like black people. So it's like, oh, my, and this is like one person.
Yeah, the holy trifecta of doom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it rose on... And this was back... I think they did this thing in 2019 is the earliest I can find. That was a 10% increase from the year before. So 10%'s a lot. And
2020 was really bad, too.
Was it really?
Yeah. I mean... I feel like it was almost every day. There was a certain point at the beginning of 2020 where we were like 60 days in, and I think 40 black trans women were murdered at that point or something like that. It was like as many days had passed, almost as many people that were black trans women had been killed.
At what scale? Is that nationally or like within?
Nationally.
Yeah, okay. Not that any of it's acceptable. But
no. Yeah. But like that's, I mean, one a day is.
Yeah, that's.
You know, that's why I always say you got to do the work, man. Like, you know, as I'm going through this, my mind is blown. You know, I'm not around that, so I don't always understand.
And that's, you know, it's exactly kind of what I was getting at. It's like, you know, I don't experience anything. Well, first of all, I don't live in Boston, so, you know, kudos to you, because I can't deal with that many people. We already talked about that.
I'm not dealing with anybody now. You could live in the city and you still see nobody.
So now, you know, on a weekly basis, how many times do you think you deal with homophobia? It's like daily, like just.
I mean, now barely ever, because I'm.
Let's say it's
alone.
A year ago.
Honestly, it depends on where I am, but I can tell you where I feel absolutely comfortable and where I don't. And
I'd be interested to hear where you.
Gay clubs, totally comfortable. Yeah. If one of my girlfriends is like, let's go to, or like I have straight male friends, so if they're like, we're gonna go to this bar and it's like a straight bar, I am like fucking terrified.
No matter what bar, or there's
no
certain
matter what bar.
So
in the city, I'm gonna be less terrified than I would be in like Nashua, New Hampshire, or Manchester, New Hampshire. But like, the less in the epicenter of culture it is, the more horrifying and terrifying it is, because I'm like, I stick out like a sore thumb. Like I don't camouflage in with the straights. So fuck.
The streets.
Yeah, the straights.
It's gonna be I'm gonna write a book.
Yeah, Joe's just gotta. You
With
gotta
Joe,
learn.
The
Joe's gonna be
straights.
my co-author because I need to understand that point of view. The straights.
The straights. So like my cousin had a divorce party and we went out and I was like, oh my God, we're in like Nashville. Like, what are we doing? I'm gonna die.
I'm not even wearing a flannel.
Like exactly. And like I got tons of looks, like tons of like dirty looks and weird shit. And then like, the drunk dude who like tries to like shove their other drunk dude friend like into the one gay guy and be like,
Really?
Oh yeah. All that stuff still happens. Like
Yeah.
all that stupid doofy shit. They're like, I bet you won't flirt with him over there. And I'm like, no, I won't because he's ugly. The guy, speaking of that, the guys that are like, I'm okay with it, but like, don't ever hit on me. That guy always looks like a bridge troll. Like he should be like collecting tolls.
It's never gonna happen. It's never
And
gonna
speaking, I'm like, nobody wants to flirt with you. Never mind the gay man. Like you're nobody's type. So
I remember having a conversation. So one of our friends, his brother, we knew he was gay when he was a kid. He was like you would call him a queen. Very
Yeah.
And he came out to us at a party. He came out to me first, and
Is anybody I know? Is it like
yeah, I'll tell you off air.
okay, all right, that's fine.
And I turned around. I'm like you're more surprised than I am. Like I knew you were that since you were a kid. I go, it's no big deal, man. We all love you. We've loved you forever. And he goes, well, I'm gonna go tell my brother. And I go, well, I wouldn't know if I would do that right now. His brother was drinking, and he went and told him, and it was a little bit of an issue for a little while. And but I remember we were at a party one day, and I said, Stevie, would you date me? And he goes, no. I was so offended. I go, what do you mean no? And,
What's wrong with me? Damn it!
he was there with his partner, and I'm used to having these conversations with Stevie since he was a kid. I didn't take into consideration his partner sitting there, and I said, well, what about you? And he goes, no. I go, am I ugly? And they're like, no, we're just not our type, And after we were done, I pulled him to the side. I said, no, I didn't mean to be mean. I was just kidding,
Yeah.
He goes, no, you are not my type. You're not ugly,
Yeah.
but you just, you're not my type. And he goes, but if you did ever jump the fence, there'd be guys plowing your door down to get at you. And that made me feel good though. I'm like, okay, all right,
Like, all right,
So, I like having being able to have those conversations and joke around, I'm not always a serious, I can be a serious person, but I do love the fact that I can meet new people, and obviously what we do for work, we get to meet lots of people, and it makes it really makes me a better person. We talked about it before. When I met Joe, I instantly loved Joe, like from the first day, and it's funny because when I introduce people, or I'm gonna bring Joe into what we do for work, I always say you're gonna love him. He's a sweetheart. And then that's all I hear about after he leaves is, oh my God, you got to bring him back. And I like to surround myself with people who have that light. I talk about light a lot, and I think did you were you on that call yesterday? You probably weren't on the kickoff, but I forget what her name was off the top of my head. But I will look her up right
Before
now.
I finish it.
yeah, I was like, I'll not say no to alcohol.
Just say when. There's more bottles, so
Yeah, we got a whole other bottle over there
you
too.
can just kill it up then.
I'll open another one.
Bam. Yeah, see, that's like not even a full 4 ounces.
That's like a restaurant, but yeah.
I've only seen
It's
Joe,
not even a restaurant.
I've only seen Joe drunk one time,
and
and you know what I'm going to say next.
rare form that night. I was on the prowl.
So yesterday on our kickoff, we had Dr. Beatrice Berry, and she talked a lot about light and how she can tell someone's light from meeting them for the first time, and I think that's so true. It's getting hot in here, huh?
I'm sweating. The heater is blowing on my back.
It's me.
I'm
It's
like,
okay. It's okay. It's all me.
Yeah, you're so hot, Joe.
Just don't hit on him.
Joe's
Joe.
like,
Just don't-
No.
I always forget that heater's on, and sometimes I have to ask people, "Is it hot in here?" Because I'm usually having a drink too. And next thing I know, I'm like, "Oh my God!" So yeah, let's look up some more statistics here.
So while you're
Statistics.
doing that, we'll talk about some more specific
Yep.
Joe statistics. So, where
Okay,
Sorry.
I'll just sip this.
yeah, just have a sip. Trying to get my thoughts together, getting up and
So anyway, buy my book.
So
I
it
got
says
more
here,
questions about that. But
in some countries, 85% of the LGBT students experience homophobic and transphobic violence in school. 45% of transgender students drop out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it says drop out of school, but I would imagine that's probably high school.
Have you looked up conversion therapy stats?
Oh, that's
That'll throw you for a
scary,
loop.
man.
so on a weekly basis, and I'm sorry, I just totally cut you off.
No, you're
but,
fine.
We talked about like how many times you've experienced homophobia. How often do you think you feel like in danger because of it or threatened?
I mean, I don't experience it very often
And
anymore
again,
because I'm in a very I'm in the industry that I'm in, which
Yeah.
is like one of the very accepting industries of gay people. And then I'm in like a metro area, but I do travel all around New England. So there are some towns that I'm like, I don't feel safe until I get to the place I'm going.
Yeah.
But in danger,
It may be threatened or
like
uncomfortable,
unsafe,
like unsafe. Yeah.
that unsafe feeling doesn't that happens in crowds. So like crowds of straight people, unless I know them all. So like you were saying earlier, how like you have some kind of anxiety unless you know everybody for like a long time, and then you're fine. Like anxiety is, everybody has some anxiety, and we all experience it different ways. I have social anxiety, period, which you'd never guess because I'm stupidly extroverted, but I am like terrified 85% of the time.
So you think you're being extroverted is kind of like compensating for like how anxious and
It can be,
Yeah,
but like my social anxiety is weird. So like if I'm supposed to go out with a friend, I can't go in until they're with me or unless I know they're inside. Like I cannot go in first.
That's how I've always been.
Yeah. So like that stuff. And even though I'm like the life of the party and the extrovert and I make friends with like 85 new people every time.
And you probably know everybody in there anyway.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah.
So like that situation is scary enough because I don't feel safe there, even though I'm perfectly safe.
Yeah. But like situation where like, man, these people really don't like gay people.
Yeah. Anywhere in the South, I mean, there are times when I've been out in like central to western Mass and I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Like it's because you don't have to get very far from a city to have a really small town mentality.
Yeah.
And that can occur anywhere. So like and you can tell because the way I know, and I don't feel physically unsafe anymore typically because like most people aren't stupid enough to do anything, but I know when I walk in if it's like a safe environment or not based on like how every guy in there looks at me and then if they're whispering to whoever they're with or if they're not. And then I'm like, okay, if they're all giving me dirty looks and then they're like they don't like gay people, if they just look and look away, I'm fine. So it's like adapting to your environment.
So what do you think? And I'm curious because, and actually I'll preface it with this: do you think that homophobia paranoia exists? Like that you might overanalyze?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure there are situations where
Okay.
I'm like way more on guard than I have to be.
Okay.
But it's almost like an animalistic instinct, though. You know when you have that feeling like somebody's watching you?
Yeah.
I get that, but it's like somebody knows you're gay.
Yeah.
So like it's really like it's kind of instinctual. But I'm sure that there are instances where like it might be two people and I think it's 20. But if the two people are there, like hate spreads really easy.
Yeah.
So it's like mob mentalities, right? Like one person's like, let's go kill the monster. And then everybody has pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh God, if those two start anything, I might be real in trouble. Where are all the exits?
Well, if anybody ever comes after you with a pitchfork and fire, you let me know.
Oh, I'll kill
I'll
them.
be right there
They'll
for
be
you.
dead already. It'll be fine. I don't usually let myself get in any situations where that could happen. I'm pretty cautious.
Well, pitchforks aren't that common anymore anyway.
No, they aren't. That's true.
That's true.
And I mean, I'm pretty brazen. Like a year ago, If I've got a couple drinks in me, I am
I had
the
to.
most brave.
I won't say it on the air, but I had to scold Joe at a party. I felt like his older brother for a minute. And I had to scold him, but no,
Did you even really scold me?
No,
don't
not
feel
really.
Like, no, I was like, you
not
didn't
really.
scold
I
me.
got-
You were just like, really, Joe? And I was like, yeah.
I gave him that a boy, but then I had to tell him, at the same time.
So is there anyone that you were friends with when or prior to coming out or as you were coming out?
Oh, I lost a lot of friends.
You did?
Yep.
Okay. And actually, I think you said that when you kind of first started.
Yeah, I lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
I had friends that I thought were my friends that were absolutely not my friends. And like looking back, so high school was very, very, my childhood was rough, but like high school was really, really tough for me. And I was institutionalized at one point in high school because I had made like my 7th or 8th suicide attempt. And they were like, we're going to just put you in here for a couple days. But after that, like, or even before that, a couple of my friends that were there, like I was a cutter, and they were supposed to be my friends, and they'd be like, slice, slice, and like make fun of it. So looking back, I'm like, that ain't a friend. Like, what are you doing? But they showed me some kindness sometimes, and nobody else showed me any. So like I was like an abused fucking puppy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I lost a lot of friends. Some of those people that were awful to me back then are much better friends of mine now, or are much more open-minded. I've had plenty of people apologize. Like I went to my 10-year high school reunion, I think. I don't know if we had a 10 or a 15. No, it was, what year is this?
I don't know. 2021,
21.
I think.
2021.
All right. So we had our 10-year in 2015, and people like literally came up and apologized to me. So they were like, now that I've experienced the world beyond the tiny hick town we all lived in, like, I'm really like sorry. And I
I
was
realized I was an asshole.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely growth too, thank God. But yeah, nope, I lost a lot of friends, or I just didn't have any.
Now, what about, and we talked earlier about people in the gay community who look down at other people that are gay, whether it be they're too gay or not gay enough, or did you lose friends because someone thought you were one way or not another?
I mean, so not within I just didn't make the friends that I could have made. Like, it's not like once I came out, I already had those gay friends and they were like, well, now you don't fit in anymore.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, when I was 18, 19, like you could go to the club back then at that age. You just had the big black X's on your hands. And like, I would meet people and they'd be like, I was really overweight. I actually weighed probably like only 5 pounds more than I do now, but it was distributed very differently. And people would be like, well, you're cute enough to date, but you're cute enough to fuck, but you're too fat to date. And like all kinds of shit like that. Or like, oh, you're too gay to bring in public, but like we could like hang out one-on-one, or like, and like Boston gays are quite cliquey. So if you don't have an in, you're on the outside. It's a really weird demographic. And the really interesting thing about it is that for like a little like epicenter of like queerdom, most of the gay people in Boston aren't from Boston. They're from all over the place. But somehow when you get here, like this air and like they're like, I live in this fancy bougie luxury apartment complex right in downtown. So you are like a peon to me. And I'm like, is it really? Are we gonna like it? It then goes into like financial and classism.
So we're a social minority already struggling within like
They
general
already have a
society,
structure. Yeah.
and now we're gonna like be against other people that kind of that follow our same values and are dealing with our same struggles. Now we're gonna create internal struggles.
Yep.
Wow.
Sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, it's great. So there's a lot of classism within the community. There's a lot of racism within the community, and then classism in the gay community is a much smaller scale and not even close to kind of version of colorism within the black community or the brown community. Like, colorism is a real thing, and it's not ever talked about because, I mean, we can barely get people to admit that racism's still happening. But colorism is like light skin
You're not
versus
dark enough for your
yeah,
yeah,
it's a big thing. And then
can't even touch on that because
we're all ivory.
You're not white, so
Yeah.
that's a problem right away. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's a huge problem in some communities. That's a problem for them even interacting with white people. Like light-skinned people have a much easier time interacting with white people than dark-skinned people, and it's really fucked up and stupid. But like that, it's kind of a similar weird construct that shouldn't exist that does, but within our own little community. And it's like, oh, you don't make enough money. Oh, you lost all your hair. Oh, this and that. Like, oh, you don't have muscle on top of muscle. So
It's just a whole bunch of high schools.
yeah, it's great, and it never ends.
Yeah.
It's blown my
Just
mind
like, no
even
matter
more.
how small
Yeah.
the struggle gets, there's a smaller struggle within.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's disgusting.
I never would have thought that. If,
Yeah.
you didn't bring it up today, I never thought that would that struggle existed.
And colorism, and you brought it up, and I'm aware of it. But you're right. There's no one talks about it, and it doesn't even really. Well, it gets talked about within like the Black community and whatnot, only because someone has a problem with.
And even then, barely.
Yeah.
Even then, barely. It's usually within a family. They might bring it up if one person is exceptionally lighter or darker than everybody else in the family.
Right.
But it doesn't get communicated
Yeah.
about.
We even
often.
got to the point where like we were beyond racism, so like that's just another thing to deal with. So now you're dealing with essentially racism within the race that's
Yeah.
being prejudged against. Like
It's like down to a microscopic level.
Yeah.
Within any community, I really feel like there's some weird instinct we have as human beings that if we're not attacking something, that we're going to get attacked.
Yeah, and I think some parts of that, when you get down to the real minutia of it, it's just evolution kind of as a whole. I mean, like the whole, mother in the wild leaving the runt behind because, it's kind of like the weak link and, it's eventually going to be an issue, or, the, pack mentality where, the strongest are up front and sometimes the weakest pull up the rear because of the easy bait and it's accepted. So I guess the biggest difference is we actually have a conscience, and
But we still do it.
yeah,
Right.
and we've evolved. I'd like to think we have opposable thumbs, and we can carry conversations and invent things like this laptop and this magical phone that we talk on, but we can't get past
And wine.
And the wine, yes. Actually, the wine came pretty early on.
Pretty early. So did a lot of forms of plumbing.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you have ever been to Pompeii.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that plumbing. I call it a ditch on the side of the road. But yes, it left the house.
It did. How about the aqueducts for the baths?
That's
Yes, that's true.
That's
And then,
plumbing.
Yeah.
And then the fountains, plumbing. Like they had fountains 2,000 years ago
Yeah.
that were like spitting water.
Yeah.
It's like, damn.
They didn't
we
figure
think
out
we're
how to
so
like
cool.
get that water to just flush the shit down the street, or not even put it in the street. But it was progress.
It was.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, for 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
I was really impressed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh damn, we just put a toilet and we think we're so cool, but
Yeah.
like the street was the toilet, but like it was raised in the middle, so
Yeah.
you could
And
walk.
here we
If
have
you- so if
Flint-
you haven't been, if you're not familiar, basically there was kind of like a trench. So there's a designated room in your little, we'll call it a house, in Pompeii, and then there was kind of a ditch that led out essentially to what the side of the street is today. Like where sewer drains would be, except there's no sewer drains for water to drain into. It was just they crowned the road. So if you were traveling, you'd be on the middle of the road, and the shit that dumped into the side of the streets would dump and flow.
It was at a lower level.
At a lower level along the sides, and then as the rain came, it would flush it down to wherever the end was going to be. So,
Oh,
on a
I'm
hot-
sure the
yeah,
sea, yeah.
right back into the
Yeah.
water. You're probably
It's amazing that they can do that, but Flint is still dealing with a water crisis.
Well, that's because people suck and it's
Yep.
all about money.
Yep.
yeah, it'll cost a lot of money to fix that problem.
Oh,
I mean, there's still after
Jeff
all these
Bezos could
years-
do it 700 times over and still have more money than anybody could spend in 20,000 lifetimes.
Well,
but
I think the mayor finally just got arrested for they charged him with a whole bunch of crimes.
good.
Yeah,
It's about time. It
It
took forever and a day, but here these people are going to suffer irreparable damage. The amount of lead poison
It's for generations.
generations,
and it's
absolutely.
irreversible.
Well, And what's
Yep.
mind-boggling to me, or like, I guess not mind-boggling, but like kind of surprised me, is
is
the fact
anything
that
really mind-boggling anymore?
no,
No.
this like Aaron Brockovich, the attorney, not eternity. Like the movie that was based on her is about water treatment in a place like Flint and the toxicity in the water and everything like that.
There's a million examples. You have like the Love Canal. You have Civil Action, which was John Travolta. He dealt with, it was toxic chemicals, and then there was Tar Creek, which was lead and zinc mines. The industrial impact on the water supply across the entire country over the last 150 years.
Oh, devastating.
And we've only scratched the surface. These are only just the ones that have been publicized.
Right.
There's still, Aaron Brockovich is a perfect example because it wasn't a big town. It was, this like, I don't know what town. I still don't know what town it was. I saw the movie. It was great, but there's all these examples that aren't getting national attention. Flint it's a pretty big town, in an area or in a state, not even just an area that's already struggling, mostly because of the industrial fall of the auto industry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like becoming a mainstream thing. But think about all these other small industry towns that nobody, and unfortunately nobody cares enough to even like make it to the national news level, or the national news level doesn't want to report it because they don't want to admit it's a big fucking problem across the whole country.
Yeah, like you said, it's this is a multi-generational issue.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just the damage that did, aside from the damage that's still happening in all these other towns, so it's anyway, it's like for the first 7 years of your life, those are the huge developmental years where lead poisoning, especially, and that's why lead poisoning or lead testing is huge during, when
Elementary
kids are
school?
infants, through elementary school, because what can be lost or damaged in those years can never come back.
Yep.
So if you experience those problems in the first 7 years of your life, you're not coming back from it.
I remember sitting at the TV, screaming at the TV that these people need health care right now. They need a whole bunch of life supporting help, and nobody gave a shit. And then the news crew started to go out into the field and actually talking to these people, and you got to actually see the effects of what lead really does to somebody, and the other issues from all those pipes we're doing to people. And to hear them talk about how many years that would be before they even got to a point where they started looking at the pipes to fix, not even like addressing that issue right then and there. It was just a series of steps, but that was the one that got me.
It's money.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. It's that whole thing doesn't go away.
The machine, we'll call it, or the industrial complex,
Yep.
Whatever you might want to call
Yep, absolutely. That's a great point.
What
That's a great
kills
point.
me about all of it is that money's not real.
No, they just
It's monopoly money. It's monopoly. We assign value to it, and that's why it has value. So,
it.
like,
I think is more actual money printed than monopoly money, or is it? I read.
I don't at this point. Probably
Yeah, probably.
we just keep printing money, even though the gold standard's long dead.
Oh, gold standard died with the
biggest-
Federal Reserve.
that was a
Act
big scam.
in the 1920s, 1930s.
People still think the Federal Reserve is a government agency, and then when you try to tell them, they're like, "No, that can't be right."
Yeah, and FedEx is also not the post office, and it's not run by the federal government. It's a private for-profit entity.
Yes.
It is.
And they have the worst tracking system out of any shipping company out there.
No, well, actually, that's if you're not including the post office as a shipping company.
Oh yeah, I'm not like a private enterprise
Yeah.
like UPS,
Yeah.
FedEx,
But they have better shipping times and better quality than UPS.
than UPS.
Yeah.
FedEx, yeah.
Are you
Recently,
sure?
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I don't interact with them often enough,
Yeah.
but every time that I have something coming FedEx, they'll be like, "Oh, check here. This is your tracking information." And I'll wait 6 days and it still hasn't updated at all. And then all of a sudden the thing's on my porch and I'm like, so it didn't go anywhere? Like it went from Georgia
That's when it updates
to
right
Boston.
there. Ding.
Like, ding, it's here. And I was like, what about the in-between scans? I like to know the journey that my item has taken.
Yeah,
We'll
I
see.
deal with shipping on on a lot of different levels for a business, a small business that we own, and especially through pandemic, which was overwhelming for a lot of shipping companies. The most reliable became FedEx, and probably was FedEx. They just were underutilized. UPS didn't. They stopped they started just turning away shipments.
Yeah, I mean, they were drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had major wholesalers where they're just like, I'm sorry, like UPS just kind of stopped picking our stuff up. And UPS FedEx, a lot of things got passed over to them, and then they carried the ball and did well. The post office, that's a whole nother story.
It's just amazing how much money we throw at that for that machine not to really work. And it's not the people. I don't blame the people that work there, because I know a lot of people that work for the post office and they're great, hardworking people. It's the system. And
yeah, it's kind of bizarre, So ironically enough, the Postal Service itself is one of the only government agencies written into the Constitution.
right.
So we're entitled, as part of the Constitution, to have this Postal Service. So they talk about it being bankrupt. It's actually our constitutional right for it to be there. So you got to figure some shit out.
Yeah.
And in today's day and age, or even you look back 15, 20 years. Yes, the price of a stamp is reasonable. It's still reasonable. It's like 50-something cents, okay? But I can mail something from here to 3,500 miles away to California for 50 cents. Can I send it via email for free right now? Sure, and it gets there instantly. So people are like, oh, why do I got to pay 50 cents? Okay, you find anything else that can make it across the country for 50 cents.
Yeah.
No matter how long it takes. You can't fucking send a balloon. And a balloon right now probably costs you more than 50 cents.
Oh, a lot more. And then the environmental impact a balloon has is a whole different story. So,
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Is Amtrak owned by the government too?
No. Amtrak's a private train company, they're passenger rail.
Hold on a second. There was
whatever federal railroad existed, that is long dead.
Yeah, most of those were private, and I think the railroad system was federally funded. The what was that one?
the National Railroad Passenger. Amtrak is a government-owned corporate established.
Really?
Yep, established in 1971. Yep,
Amtrak is
Amtrak.
government-owned?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But it's still a corporation.
Well, yeah, it's here.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And it's definitely for profit. Like, it's not a not-for-profit organization.
Wikipedia is so hard to read sometimes.
That's because people write it.
That's true. Yeah.
It's
anybody
hard.
can write it.
Yeah.
It's true. I always, I like Wikipedia, but sometimes you got to be smarter. Than
I've gone in and changed people's birthdays every now and then.
I read a story one time, and it's going back a few years, but it was about a guy who was like at a concert, and he wanted to go backstage, and he edited Wikipedia to say that like he was like one of the band members' cousins or something like that. And then he went to, whoever's kind of monitoring the getting backstage. He's like, I'm the drummer's cousin or whatever. And he's like, look, it's right here on Wikipedia. And the guy's like, oh, sorry, you're gonna let him back. I'm like,
it says
if
right
it's
here
in Wikipedia, it must be true.
It must be true.
After a number of major railroads went bankrupt, Congress took over passenger rail in 1970 with the creation of Amtrak. Amtrak is structured like a corporation, but the government owns virtually all the stock. The government rail company was supposed to be self-supporting, but has never actually earned profits. It has consumed more than $40 billion in federal subsidies over the decades.
Sounds a lot like the post office.
Yeah. In 2014, it had a revenue of $3.2 billion and expenses of $4.3 billion, and it received direct federal subsidies of $1.5 billion. That sounds about right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and this probably already happens, but how much mail is transported on Amtrak, considering they're two federal agencies, and one could probably save the other a lot of money?
Probably zero.
Yeah. There's probably a whole nother rail system that's operated by the post office.
Yeah.
The same tracks, though.
Oh, yeah, they're using the same tracks.
Wormholes, man. We could open up that can, go right down that wormhole.
Yeah, how'd we get on government-owned agencies?
This is the best part about the podcast.
If you give a gay a grinder to
let's get back to the gay
government-owned railroads.
This is what we do.
Let's talk
man.
about the sequel, Joe.
This podcast takes us in different directions.
So you have an illustrator.
Yes.
And you want to work with him again? It's a him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Javier Ramos.
Okay. How'd you get the book made?
Oh. So, yeah, I think I kind of dropped it off at the illustrator, and then we went sideways.
That's what happened.
So after that, I was looking for gay publishing companies my phone just flew out of my pocket.
It happens.
So weird. I was like,
Jeff has that effect on people.
It's only it's only our ghost. He's good.
that's fine. So I was trying to find gay publishing companies, and I found a few, and I was looking at them and like seeing what they printed and everything. And then I reached out and I was like, do you guys do picture books? I have this thing that's not like really anything that is out there in the gay world. Like there's Go the Fuck to Sleep, which was an inspiration for this.
Sure.
But like,
can you get Christopher Walken to read this book like he did on YouTube?
Oh, that would be awesome.
I mean,
that's
or
such
just
a good
or
call.
like a super like expiring or famous like gay actor. Like that would be awesome.
Coco Peru might read it for me.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, let's go
she's
back
a
to
huge drag queen.
Yeah.
Like she's been around forever.
That would be epic, but yeah.
So I was like, I reached out and they were like, oh no, we don't. You have to submit this, blah, 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 and that's not what we do. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like after like 2 or 3, I give up. I'm like, I'm done. And then I was like, self-publish a book. How do I print a book for myself? And they're like, because there are those photo books that you can print, like Shutterfly and all that shit, where you like
you
can
get like 10 of them for free or
yeah,
whatever.
like all these kind of things. And I was like, but the sizing is not appropriate to what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And originally, there was a point where I was like, do I want this to be a board book? Board books are the ones that are completely cardboard, basically. Like every page
pages like toddler books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I want to make it a board book like that and like really go like all out with like the children's book motif and the very, very adult material?
That's actually a pretty good idea.
I mean, I tell you what.
Yeah.
I mean, well, everything about this format right here screams Dr. Seuss to me.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, I have like 20 of these, and like I just wanted to pick it up, and I knew how gay it was, and I was totally fine with it. I just want you to know that. But like it screams that format.
Yeah, like Little Golden Book,
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss, like all those, like, and that was the point.
Yeah.
And I also was like, it needs to be like a quality hardcover. The pages need to be good because I want it to be a coffee table book. My envision was all those rich gays that don't associate with me would want it for their table at their bougie apartment in downtown Boston.
It's kind of bougie.
That's where Joe's going to infiltrate.
Yeah,
that,
I'm like,
that
well,
section.
now you want to know me.
Yeah. Like,
So-
you won't like
It's a Trojan horse right
You won't
there.
give me a fire emoji, but my fucking book's on your coffee table.
Right?
Yeah, I win.
Like I wrote that shit. So I went and I looked at a couple different things that like printed and published and did things like that, and a lot of them were like text, like book, like actual books, novels and novellas and things like that. And I was like, no, this is 10 pages. That's not enough. And a lot of them have like a 12-page or like a 25-page minimum. And I was like, I guess I could put black and white pictures and people could have a coloring book in the back. Like I was thinking of all different kinds of ways to make this happen and be printed and whatever. But then I eventually found this company that I used called Print Ninja. Their office is in Chicago. They print in China. And their customer support is fantastic. Like I had a really, really great experience. And on their website, like you get to choose everything. So like, is it a hardcover book? Is it soft cover? Do you want it laminated? Do you want it matte finish?
Dimensions,
like everything,
all
the dimensions, how many
Different
pages
types
is it
of
going to be? And
bindings
then they
and
give you a
stuff,
quote for it. And then like, do you want priority shipping, which is when they fly it over to you? And that's like $900 to $2,000 more. Or you could let it float over on a barge.
Wait like 2 months.
And wait 2 months, which is what I did.
That's a lot of patience, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God. When they were
Like
like,
it was like a
shipped-
year process, right? A year or two.
Oh yeah, it was like probably a good year and a half altogether. And like now I'm gonna spend every free waking moment packing them and shipping them and signing them because I don't have anybody else to do it. Like I don't have a fulfillment.
So you're
center.
signing each coffee in
Yeah, and like, yep. Everyone that was pre-ordered is going to be signed. I don't know about the rest, but all the pre-orders are going to be signed. And then like if somebody I know buys a book and I see, because it literally comes to me and I put it in an envelope and print the shipping shit. Yeah. So like if it's like somebody I personally know, I'm probably going to sign it anyway or like write them a little note. This
I
is
saw it.
yours.
You have a note.
It has a note.
There's a note.
Is there signed in there already?
Yeah.
It's like a yearbook. I didn't read it. I saw it was like, hey Jeff or whatever, and I kind of skipped past it because it's between you and Joe. But
yeah. Yeah, I'm leaving that. That's yours.
So
Nice.
you order a certain quantity.
Yep. So and you can print by like 250, 500, 1,000, 1,500, something like that. I printed 500 because to print 250, the cost per book is like extremely high.
Right.
So I was like, well, I don't want that. Because, and that's a big factor too. So not to sidetrack, but like my book is fairly expensive for the size that it is. And people are like, well, that's a lot. And I'm like, it cost almost that much for me to make them. So if I'm going to make any money off of this, I have to charge a couple dollars more. So it's $30 a book. And right now I have a 20% off little sale happening on my website.
And where can you find
What's the
those?
website again?
Yeah.
The website is reallygaybooks.com, and the code to use for 20% off is book launch.
No, I did find that on Amazon
caps.
today.
Yeah, I have an Amazon.
I was going to ask her.
Yeah, so there's an Amazon store for it too. I've sold probably 60 on Really Gay Books and 3 on Amazon.
Now, have you looked at the digital books, like publishing it as digital on?
I don't want to.
No? Okay.
I mean, I could, but I don't want, like, this.
That's your vision.
It's, yeah. I'm
so
like,
don't stray from it. That's fine.
like, I can't imagine, like, okay, what, like.
This is how you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Perfect.
I have a digital copy of it that I have sent people, but I'm like, why would you want like a digital picture book? Like, unless you have a big ass iPad, like I have an iPad Pro.
You
or,
want
like,
that
you have
old
a nice,
school where you can
like,
touch it.
Yeah,
It's 10
you know,
pages. Like
yeah.
you want to have it out.
yeah.
You wanna,
Like if you're
this is my
spending
book.
money on 10 pages, they should be
Yeah.
physical and worth it and tactile.
So
So Print Ninja got the quote, and then I decided, okay, how do I make that much money so I can print this? And then I was like, I could crowdfund. That might work. And I should have done Indiegogo because it would have probably made more sense, but I did a GoFundMe. And basically I was like, if you donate $30 or more, you get a signed copy of the book when they finally come. And that I prayed to the universe and was counting on people to basically donate enough to hit the, I think it was like $2,700 goal to get them printed. And I got pretty close. And then the rest I just threw out of pocket because I got a little like holiday
I don't
bonus
think
or
people
something.
really know how much it costs to do this.
No, it was
mean, this
all
is an
together.
eye-opener
I spent
about-
probably over $5,000 or $6,000
Wow.
in making this happen. Like
So that's like start to finish to get 500 books in your hand.
Wow.
and that's with like barely any cost. Like there's nobody, I'm not hiring people to ship it.
Right.
It's not going through Amazon's fulfillment center. Like
That's
it's
just
all
normal
me.
process.
That's
just like
Yep.
bare bones, like your idea to getting this book in your hands
Yep.
that much with nobody else really involved other than the people who had to directly deal with.
yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
working with the illustrator that I did and the agreement that we came up with too, because there's so many different ways when it's artwork and it's going to be printed to
Because you could incentivize it or you might
royalties and things like that. Yeah. So I paid flat. I was like, I don't even know if the book's going to happen. So I'm going to pay
So
for
as
these
this grows, you
illustrations.
could come into different agreements where it might be a little
Yeah.
easier to get
Like
to
if
print.
this thing goes crazy, I'm absolutely going to give him more money. Like
Right. and then you could start your second book. But
Yeah.
listen, we already know what this one did.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would absolutely pay him more per illustration for the second book too. Like if we would work out, I would probably do because he brought it to life perfectly.
Yeah.
But I also, like I said earlier, I have merch like phone cases, T-shirts, and stuff. And then
And where can people find that too?
that's on reallygaybooks.com as well.
Okay.
And then I have enamel pins that are being made right now. And they're the little chunky guy from page 1.
Oh, nice.
And it's going to be really cute. Because apparently pins are big in the game. I don't know. I don't own a lot of enamel pins, but like my friend who is in marketing and like also is.
Pins are like becoming a big thing. So another thing you might not know about me, I'm kind of like a hippie.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been to like, at this point, over 60 Fish shows,
Really?
countless music festivals. Like there's very few like music artists that I haven't seen live. A lot of music festivals and stuff like that. And like enamel pins, it's like a currency.
Is it really? Yeah.
It's nuts. Like,
I never heard of it.
yeah.
Yeah,
just-
they're taking. So you went to Destination last year, right?
Yeah.
All those pins, those are enamel pins. Like
Right.
starfish.
Well, I know
like,
what they are, but
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realize
like,
it was
they're
like
huge.
So yeah.
Like I guess like Disney people have like a bajillion different Disney enamel pins. Like it's a thing.
Deadheads, fish fans, like all of them. Like there's you go to these venues and like people with just
wow.
hats.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Just covered with enamel pins. Like my kids have like, you know, because they've come to a ton of music festivals and concerts with me, and they have like these huge collections. And people see them walking, and you know, I've just taken them to random shows, and they bought them because they thought they were cool, you know. And then it was like, oh man, you got this one, and like people are trying to trade like my 12-year-old, you know, with all kinds of different things,
Yeah.
you know, for their pin. And I'm like, this is wild. Like, you know, I think I own 2 enamel pins. I own them because I thought they were really cool. And they're in like a box on my dresser, but it's, you know, in different, you know, communities, it's like becoming a currency or a big thing. That's awesome.
Wow.
I mean,
So hopefully it comes out good. The thing with enamel pins is that they can't do shading like they do with other things. Like I could have gotten like a round disc pin and they could have printed the image on it, but I was like, that's tacky. I don't want that. So like this cute little guy here with all of his shading and everything, like all the shading's gone. So it's just flat colors. And Javier, actually, I reached out to him and I was like,
Can I see the book?
yeah, of course you can. It's
Thank you,
yours.
sir.
I was like, can you take this and make it so I can make it an enamel pin? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, so he's on a bed and like there's a pillow and like I just want him. So like he redrew it and like filled in part of the chest that's missing in the book. And
yeah,
like,
and there's some clear definitions where you could
Yeah.
separate. Yeah.
so he did that for me. I sent it in to the pin company. They came up with a couple concepts. I was like, no, no, yes, no. And then at the end of it, I basically like picked a few things from each and was like, this culmination is what will work for the pin right now. And I spent, you know, a good amount of money printing a few hundred pins. So hopefully they sell.
So you crowdfunded. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, I crowdfunded. I used GoFundMe
to kind of get yourself off the ground. Then you also said you pre-sold. Kind of was that once you knew it was going to happen?
Oh, once it was paid for, like once
Yeah.
I knew that the 500 copies were coming from China.
And that was mostly GoFundMe plus your kick in,
Yeah. Plus my like $800
Then you started.
kick in.
You're like, this book's happening. Here's what it is. It's for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason why I had to kick in as much as I had to kick in is because my initial quote was for the wrong amount of pages and the wrong, like I counted 5 like my brain doesn't always work.
It's 5 pieces of paper, not
I was
10
like
pages.
5
Yes.
pieces
Yeah.
of paper, 5 pages. And then
They're double-sided.
yeah, and they were like, no, that's 10, and I was like, ugh. And then for the like, I just did it wrong. So like my quote ended up going up by like $1,000, and I was like, okie dokie, here's what I have. But yeah, it's a very interesting process to have everything done. They send you proofs, so they sent like you have to send everything in. It has to be the right size, the right positioning, and everything. And Javier took care of that. Like he really went above and beyond. He's incredible, and everybody should follow him on Instagram and buy his art and send him money.
Give him a shout out. What's his Instagram
his
handle?
Instagram is at W Lagner. So like Wagner.
You can like embed that. And,
I'm gonna-
do all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can just search Javier Ramos and it should come up too. But like he's a really, really wonderful guy. And he was like, well, what size do they need to be? And I was like, I don't know. Here's the website. And he like looked at it and made sure it was all formatted correctly for me. And I was like, thank you so much. And then I sent it over. And then they sent me, I paid for a physical proof because I wanted to see like the colors.
Yeah.
Because they can look so vastly different digital towards printed media. So I paid a little extra for a physical proof, but they send you a digital proof first. And then if that looks good, you say yes. And then they send the physical one, which that comes over on a plane, and it's actually like a poster. I was expecting it. I thought they were going to print me one book. So it's like, it's 8 pages. So you select whatever 8 pages you want, and then it's like a poster of those 8 pages.
It's like those uncut dollar
Yeah.
bills.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So I have 2 of those at home.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You should frame those.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, damn. But like, it looked really good. And I was like, amazing. Yes, let's go for it. And then I had to wait. And what was really cool. So, I mean, like the people that I can't speak to everybody that works for Print Ninja, but if they're even close to as wonderful as Grace is, then they're amazing. The woman that I worked with that like partnered, you know, they get assigned your case and then they just go. Every Print Ninja book the printing company sends one back to Print Ninja headquarters, and it goes in their library. So they literally have a copy of every book they've ever printed.
That's insane.
And the print company sent them 2. So Grace sent me one of them. So before any of the books came, like they were all like before they even got on the barge from China, I had, one copy.
Because it was an extra.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. Like I wept. So like I really enjoyed working with them. They are very stand-up people. And, like during manufacturing, they were like, well, these are the Chinese holidays, so there's going to be a delay because of this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, good. It's good that they're not manufacturing during their holiday. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a good company. I paid a lot, but I got a lot out of it.
So I have a UPC and an ISBN number, which ISBN I know is specific to books. So what's the process to get a UPC and an ISBN? And, and I think that runs concurrently with getting things on Amazon also.
Yeah. So I just looked it up. I literally was like, I need a barcode. And then books have to have, like, an ISBN is what identifies a book. So if anybody types that ISBN into the internet, this book will come up.
ISBNs are very isolated to just the book industry.
Specific.
Yeah. So there are websites where like you can buy an ISBN and a barcode at the same time. You can just buy one. You can get the other. You can buy 15 barcodes if you're going to have different versions or different, like, because every UPC has to be different.
Right.
If it's a different size book, a different material, a different this or like, so if I came up with a special edition,
different illustrations, different colors.
If the crowdfunding went wild, I was going to have this be in gold foil.
Yeah.
So like if
that's a different UPC,
that'd be a different
ISBN, probably, yeah.
So like anything like that kind of changes it. But yeah, I just bought one because I was like, it's a one book. And that's what I did. I just literally like everything
you just go online and basically they have it's a list of available UPCs and ISBNs. Either
they just auto generate it, like you don't
generate it. It's not guaranteed not to be assigned to something else.
Yep,
it's random because it's obviously so many numbers that it just keeps. It's in different
infinite combinations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically it. And I mean, I went to like through the official ISBN website. Like I didn't do some weird third party thing, but I'm sure there are those out there too. Like because there are shipping weird third party.
Does anybody know what ISBN stands for? I don't.
I have no idea.
Book
I know
number.
UPC is universal.
It's something book number.
Yeah, UPC is universal product code, but ISBN
international book number. That's what I'm saying.
International something.
It's B. It's book. It's a book. It's for books.
Get the S.
International.
You got the Google right
so
there.
what is it?
ISBN.
What does ISBN?
I was like,
for?
it's IBN. It's just IBN.
Randy, where are you on this?
He's out like a light. That guy.
Speechless.
All right, international standard book number.
Okay.
Yeah, you had all but okay.
I was like, I know most of it.
And I'm impressed that you even knew that to begin with.
What?
I didn't know that.
I know so much random shit, but again, like I didn't know what ISBN stood for.
But at least you knew what it was.
I had to know. That's just how I work. Like if I don't know it, and I can't believe that I probably.
I'm sure you heard it.
Yeah.
I had to have known it at some point because I knew that ISBN is specific to books.
Yeah.
So at some point I saw it, I just didn't remember it because I'd have to know all
you
that.
are 95% better than the average public. So you're definitely good.
I don't know if I call it better.
Coincidentally, the UPC is the ISBN number on this book. So,
is it really?
Yeah. So it's the same thing for both. But I did that. And I sent it to Javier and I had him put it on the back cover and we had to send the cover in separately. And then I also submitted it for copyright. But that takes forever. So I haven't checked in a while if it's copywritten or not, but don't steal it.
Or Joe will come after
intellectual
you with the
property
vengeance.
actually, these days has like digital timestamps and everything like that. So if you can prove, certain things, you have a leg to stand on. So, waiting on copyright, trademarks, patents, there you have some leeway there. Sequel.
Yes.
So how many you ordered 500 copies? How many have you sold?
Probably including the pre-sale, like the crowdfund and everything. I probably sold I did 58 for the crowdfunding, or I had 58 donations, and then I sold some through I sold them through different channels at first. I was selling it through Venmo before I set up my store. So I probably have like 15 on Venmo, and then I want to say about 50 through Really Gay Books, and then 3 from Amazon. So around like 160.
Okay.
It's not bad.
So
There's a comic book shop in Missouri that bought 10 copies,
Yeah.
and I need to send those out this week. But like, I'm hoping that they move pretty quickly. It's like a really queer facing comic book shop, and I'm like, that would be amazing. And then there's an independent bookstore in JP that I had to wait until the books finally came to submit like my everything to. So I'm going to drop that off too, because I'm hoping that some independent bookstores will carry it. I'm also hoping that like I don't have connects in P-Town, but I know plenty of people that know people in P-Town or that own the stores in P-Town. So I was like, if I could get this in Provincetown, then it could do very well.
Sure. Yep.
It's like the gay mecca.
Now, will you not go to the next book until those are sold out?
The next book's not going to happen until I get enough money to print it. So whether these have all sold or not doesn't quite matter to me. Or if I need to, like the other option is do I print more copies of this, because 500 is not that many.
Yeah.
So if it takes off and people want it, like I'll have to print more. So it just depends on which avenue. The second book is definitely, as long as I can like pay to print it and pay for Javier to illustrate it, it's going to happen. And it will be twice as long, if not longer, because 10 pages is a little bit of a cock tease.
But I think
So
that's a
all you
good thing,
gay
though.
guys that are concerned with size, the next one will be bigger.
Yes.
But I think that's great, though. Like, if that's it, I think that'll get them to really want the other book, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not going to be about Grindr, but it is going to be very, very gay.
Of course.
It's basically, it's going to be hilarious. I'm really, really happy with what I've come up with
I
so
did
far.
notice on the number 1 page, that little toy that's laying next
Yeah,
to him.
yeah,
You
the butt plug.
mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It should be like search and find. Like you
Yeah.
find,
What do you
Oh,
see in
yeah,
this
yeah.
picture? Because honestly, he hid so many cute details in a lot of the illustrations that I'm like,
those your ideas to put in?
no,
that was
no, he just did it.
Oh, wow.
Like, he's incredible.
Yeah.
When he sent me,
So Javier's gay, because I know.
Yes.
I'm assuming. Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause,
Javier's
you
gay.
said you tried sourcing. A lot of people in the gay community.
so this Romy and Michelle's poster up here, he put in himself. And when he sent me the sketch and I saw that, I was like, oh my fucking God.
What about the other book that
Oh my
it's
God.
on the bed?
So there's Story of
Eye?
the Eye. I don't know who that is. I don't know if that's a real book or not, honestly. There's another book over here with the name. The Chapstick has chapstick written on it. Like, there's so many details that he put in. But the next book is going to be, it's very sing-songy, rhymey, and it's super gay, but it's basically about what bottoms have to do to prepare for a night with someone intimately, and what tops don't have to do to prepare for a night with someone intimately. And I really, really like, not to toot my own horn, but I was like, this is funny. I really like this. So I already sent part of it to Javier, and he was like, this is hysterical. So I was like, I really hope that this book does well enough so that I can print that. And then I do want to, I want to do a series of like tongue-in-cheek, ridiculous ones. I have a lot of lesbian friends, and they're like, where are the ladies? So I'm like, well, it's not my experience, so I didn't want to do that, but
So
I could.
is Grindr for
Gay. It's a gay
Just-
hookup app.
okay? All right. So lesbians use it as well.
No, it's gay
Okay.
male hookup app.
Gay male. Okay.
But
All right.
like they're like lesbians
Is there a
hook
lesbian-
up with
Yeah, I was
people
gonna say,
too.
what's
I
Is there a
don't know
lesbian
if there's a
equivalent?
dedicated app because I don't have a vagine, but
Oh, but you.
I know that doesn't mean I know their apps.
No,
but
that's true.
probably
Well, it's just like us, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I
we
know
don't
lesbians,
that-
but I mean, yeah, like Grindr is just all I ever know. And you named off like 4 other,
there's a
gay
bunch. There's
male apps.
Hornet. There's so many.
Hornet, I like the Stinger.
Yeah. Bumble. I never put that together. That's really funny. I was
Well,
like,
Bumble's
I
straight as well because
Bumble is straight.
Bumble's
Bumble was
straight,
created by a woman.
Yeah.
And it's for basically like, against all the other things, it's like the woman gets to decide if they want to accept. So I thought it was just for straight
still owned
people.
by Match, though. I think
And then-
Bumble's still owned by Match.com, which they own all of them. They don't own Grindr, I don't think, but
No,
they own
no,
a
they
lot of
don't.
them, though.
And then there's Plenty of Fish, which is
They own
sketchy.
Tinder.
Do they own
Match
Tinder?
owns Tinder, I think.
Do they really?
Yeah.
They
Tinder,
acquired it.
Bumble. Yeah, no, all acquisitions.
Yeah.
Match was one of the originals.
Well,
I think.
Yeah, the OG.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's
I'm-
So you don't know what the
I don't know if there's a lesbian
gay female
app,
I guess, yeah.
a female
All right, hold
app.
on. Hold
There-
on.
there has to be.
I'm on it. I'm on
I
it.
mean, I'd assume.
Yeah,
it's-
there's probably one,
Yeah.
but what I would do is source the information from my lesbian friends. Like, I'm not gonna just stick my face on the
Oh, of course. Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Just
not
like
gonna.
I'm not going to write.
Yeah.
If you give a gay guy a Grindr, like,
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of men who would probably do that though, because we like to mansplain. But I don't want to mansplain.
So
So
the number one app for lesbians is Her. That's number one. Scissor is number two.
yeah.
Grinder, scissor, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Femme is number three. Leslie is number four.
How cute.
Pink Cupid. And Hinge. I thought Hinge was a
It's straight too, but
straight
It's
to
yeah.
like Bumble. I think
it's like Bumble
probably-
and Tinder
yeah.
and everything.
So Bumble's number 7. So it looks like they're getting into more
Mainstream.
some fluid stuff
yeah.
here. Yeah. So, yeah, and then
So
Tinder.
I'm on Bumble, and there's Bumble BFF, which is like literally to make friends. And then there's like the dating. But if you create a Bumble BFF, they make a dating profile for you too. So I was like, okay, whatever. The amount of straight guys that match me and then are like, so I'm like, what the fuck?
So they physically have to match you?
Yeah,
Okay,
they
so it's not
they
like-
physically match me, and then they're like,
I didn't realize.
so what's
you
that?
were,
Blah 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 blah. And I was like, you know exactly what that is in reference to, sir. And they were like, I just want to know what you mean, because I'm disgusting and filthy. So like on my profile, I just like it's like, what's your hidden talent? And I was like, well, I can't say that here. Yuck. But like they'll literally message me and they'll be like, what's your hidden talent? And I'm like, are you fucking stupid?
Wait, so these are people hitting up you on the BFF side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That are straight
That are
men.
straight men.
That are straight
yeah.
men.
And then when I say, they're like, oh, everybody could use a friend like that. And I'm like, you're so stupid.
So do you not cross over to, like, if you think he's a straight man, do you not?
If
Go
he's
there?
single, I don't care. But
Okay.
like if he's married, I'm not doing it. Like, no, I don't need to ruin anybody else's life.
True. Yeah.
Ruin mine enough. So like,
All right. So you got to slow down. All right. So there's the just looking for friends
Yeah.
section. Guy hits you up because he just wants to be friends with you.
he uses that as an excuse.
And he still wants to know your hidden talent.
Yeah. Mhm.
So your take on it is
Oh no, it's because once
He
I tell
really
them the
wants
hidden
to know your
talent, then
hidden
they really ask more questions. About
Okay.
Can you
All
tell
right.
us what your hidden talent is off the air?
I off the air.
I can't wait.
It's nothing surprising. It's not like some weird thing. It's just something that you're not supposed to say in a BFF or dating profile.
True.
So yeah, so it's really interesting, like the dynamic, and I think that's part of like the fluidity of the spectrum and the fact that there is still so much like weird barriers that people have that are, it's always guys that are like in their late 20s, early 30s and above. It's never like 21-year-olds who are like, well, I'm straight. They just hit me up on the regular the other Bumble.
Yeah, they don't pull any
So would you
punches.
say Bumble's like a gateway? So it's like
It's an easy
I'm gonna
way
use
in.
that BFF section to kind of like figure things
Yeah,
out. for
people can dip
myself.
the toe in the water
Yeah.
there because
and then like 6 months from now I'm on Grindr.
could be, or could dip the
Or
toe
you're-
and decide that it's not the lake for them and never go back in. Like
Yeah.
I just think that because there's the BFF aspect and then the fact that like you can select if you're interested in men, women, or both, I think it gives a little leeway, whereas Grindr is specifically gay. So
Yeah.
like people that are curious or people that have like Bumble is a really easy gateway
Okay.
for them. That's a lot more socially acceptable. Like if somebody saw Bumble on their phone, they wouldn't be like, oh, why you go Bumble?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if
Grindr's there.
if you had Grindr on your phone and Jeff was like, why you got Grindr? Like there's only one reason.
He's talking to Joe.
Yeah.
I didn't have his number.
I'm talking about BFF.
It's just it's been it's an interesting world out there right now.
I'm trying to look up, like, so you said there's a lot of men on on Bumble that use that as a tool to kind of
Dip the toe.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to look up to what that might look like for numbers.
Dip the
in
toe,
men.
a whole. I'm sure that like
Maybe dip more than a toe.
yeah.
Oh, these pop-up, these ad stuff kills
You're on
me.
the wrong website.
Yeah, if there's a lot of pop-ups, then just we'll close that.
Enable your antivirus and get out of there.
Yeah.
So I know I had another question. You talked about getting into P-Town. Have you, from a marketing perspective, kind of seeked out other, like I don't want to say gay friendly, but predominantly based on demographic, other bookstores in select areas, because I think Austin, I think also has a large percentage of
Every
gay
city
community.
has like
well,
a little,
large metro has that, but have you like kind of reached out to that community and be like,
not yet.
what bookstore would you recommend? I want to get my book in there. This is what I do.
Yeah. Not yet.
Right.
I started with Boston because that's
where you are.
where it's, and like what's really frustrating about the internet is that they'll be like, these are the top 10 gay bookstores in Boston, and then you look and like 5 of them are closed, and the list was only of 6 anyway.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting trying to navigate that route, and I think I have to kind of step back from like gay bookstore and just go to independent bookstore, because there's not enough independent gay bookstores left.
Right.
Not, at least not in Boston. There might be in Austin, Texas, or like San Diego has a huge scene. Philly has a really big scene. Chicago is like super gay. So like depending on where. Cincinnati has a really big scene too. So like
you got to go with your, like, pardon the pun, but your best bang for your buck.
yes,
Do you know what I mean? Like P-Town would be a great.
P-Town would be
Yeah.
amazing, because
You
not
said
only
that's the Mecca, like
it's the Mecca, like
yeah.
people come from all over to P-Town. It's like literally the gay Mecca, but also not only is it like just gay people, straight people go, people bring their families, like they, and so they could be like, oh my God, your gay uncle would love this. Like it's just like a, it could do really well.
Yeah.
And then a lot of prominent famous gay people go to P-Town all the time too. So like it could, if one of them decided they loved it, bought it, and like decided they were just going to talk about it one day, like that could do really amazing things.
I
for
bet
me.
if you took like a weekend and you took a bunch of these books and just cold called, it'd be a major hit.
That was kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's a big, undertaking, but I mean,
yes, and I have a full-time job.
Yeah, but you said it yourself. Like independent bookstores is where it's at, and if you look at like where independent bookstores are thriving, it's it's in these communities where they're really focusing on local business, and a lot of those communities are all encompassing. They include a lot of different people, which would include, as gay people. So I think that's.
Are we included? Oh wow!
Yeah, you're welcome. All right,
Thanks. We just made that happen. Where's the gavel?
We just made
Where's
that
the
happen. But I mean, again, very time consuming.
Yes.
To try to unless I assume there's probably some kind of independent bookstore network sort of thing. You just got to get in
There's
with that.
probably a publicist or a
That
marketing
weird
person
old
that
guy
I could
sitting in the
pay.
back room of a bookstore is like, I know everybody.
Yeah. It's like the guy in The Simpsons, the comic book shop owner. Yeah. So that's in the future. Hopefully I want to I just need to get through the ones I've already sold and get them sent out before I worry about what's next, kind of. I had a lot of momentum and it's kind of dying off though. So I need to figure out how to reinvigorate it and get people excited about it again. But there are 2 gay magazines that did articles on it.
wow. Yeah.
I did an interview with one of them, like a live Instagram live interview Friday night. Yeah.
Who was that with?
Instinct magazine. It was on their Instagram. Their Instagram is much smaller than their website following. Their website Instinct has been around for a long time, like that gay website. But I got they wrote an article, and then I got to do an interview. So there's things that are happening. Miss Coco Peru for free, plugged my book on our Instagram, and that got
Awesome.
me a decent amount of sales too.
That's huge.
It comes and goes. Like even with the podcast, we'll have like this tidal wave of momentum. Then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. It's never like dribble, and then go back on. It's like hit a brick wall. I got nobody for a couple of weeks, and then we have, like now we're booked all the way until April. You know what I mean? It's just weird how it comes that way.
I mean, I'm a small business owner. In addition to what my full-time job is, I started a small business alongside a full-time job that I had. And, I did everything on word of mouth. So it was, and I print t-shirts, to I guess, put a little more, to fulfill the picture. And it was kind of feast or famine for a while. Like all of a sudden, once people knew what I was trying to do, it was like, oh, let me give you, all this business. And, there's some empty promises, but a lot of people really came through. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I invested a little bit more into my business. I'm ready for more of that. And then it was like a drought.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes back. And then there's those moments where like, oh my God, this is too much. What did I get myself into?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you compensate by maybe even, buying new equipment or new resources or, ordering extra books, whatever it might be. And then you're like, oh, then drought again. Did I bite off more than I can chew? Okay, waiting for that business. And it's like, oh shit, what am I going to do? There's too much business. And, it's that constant cycle.
Yeah. Yep.
It's, I don't want to say it's easy from the podcast perspective because you're just looking at the views, there's tons of work that goes into each podcast. And I don't want to discount that because I don't want to do any of that shit, like video editing, all that. No,
Editing
thank
is
you.
the worst.
But,
Yeah.
What happens here and what happens for the editing, for the most part, is pretty consistent. It's really the kind of just that what's going to happen after the end result, so your work's pretty consistent up till now. It could get crazy.
It could,
Yeah.
but there's
I
also
hope it
nothing,
does for
there's
you.
no physical good. So like
Yeah.
it's digital, right? Like you do the podcast, you edit the podcast, and then whether 1 million people watch
Yeah.
it or 2, it's
Well,
out.
no, so
That's kind of what I was getting at.
yeah.
was,
Well, the progression's
it's-
going to be merch, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
But
we had a-
right now,
we had a first set of T-shirts that we did, and we had to go back, and I can't use the
was it a logo?
It was like a trademark.
trademark. Well, kind of it was, but I didn't want to get into the he said she said, so we had to switch gears a little bit. So those progressions will come, and then it'll be, like
Yeah, once you're making T-shirts and packing them up here and sending them out, you'll know. the
yeah,
struck.
yeah. So there's gonna be a lot of that stuff that's down the road.
Shit,
but
I got to send out 100 shirts this week, and then next week it's like I only got to send out 2 shirts this week.
yeah.
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 But and I wasn't discounting what,
No,
what you're
but
doing.
I'm saying
But
that
it's like
this is
what you're doing right now. Like your first video could have got 100 views, and this one could get 10,000. Not a whole lot changed.
No, I see what you're saying.
But
yeah.
Physical labor wise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but initially, again, not just you had to buy these.
Well,
and that
Oh, that
the,
was
the,
a huge
the other thing
investment.
too is
Oh,
editing
yeah.
becomes like we had this new camera angle that we had to deal with. That was very time consuming because it was literally I couldn't leave the computer while I was doing anything. I had to constantly click back and forth manually, and I'm sure as technology gets a little bit better and I get the right equipment, that'll not be a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But you do invest. There's a lot of time invested where you have to learn all these things, but those do get easier as
Yeah.
as certainly as time goes on.
Honestly, the thing that might be the easiest with having 2 cameras is maybe having like a split screen or a picture-in-picture, because if technology does advance, it'll probably be like prompted by the audio. So if you're talking and then that person says something or intro, like it might.
So
just,
they
like,
do
shoot
have
off
that
of
already.
you.
That
There
those
has
those,
to be a software. It's
Yeah.
like where
Yeah.
it senses the audio, it cues to that camera.
So it's more of a hardware system
Yeah.
that does that. But with my interface, again, that's a whole other
Another
learning
big
curve. Yeah,
investment,
you gotta. This thing here cost me $600, not to mention all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
No, you made a very.
Oh yeah.
You made an investment
Yeah.
for sure.
well, I made an investment, but you guys are really what it takes to do the podcast, and I'm very humbled by people actually want to come here and hang out and talk to us. So if I can give back and
Yeah, sell some
know,
books, Jeff.
sell some books.
Sell some books.
Really
Right,
good
boys.
books.com.
We got to shut this down. We're at 2 hours and 17 minutes.
Oh damn.
And I got to get up for work in the morning. So, And you got a long ride.
I do, and have to get up for work in the morning.
So let's plug your book one more time. Let everybody know where they can get it, but it will also be in the description below.
All right, so reallygaybooks.com. It's there. Book launch is the code that you want to use, all caps, to get 20% off. And it's 20% off anything in the store. So not just the book, but like the cell phone cases. And the cell phone cases are for any cell phone. Like there's like 23 options per case. So you can get any size, anything. There's the one that I have, which is the guy taking a dick pic. Or you could go for something a little less scandalous. And there are some that are a little bit more, PG. There's a notebook. The notebook is super cute.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, buy some merch.
Yep, absolutely.
I get more off the book, but buy some merch.
There you go. Brett,
As always,
your turn.
I'll plug my small business, IQ Inc., or IQ Inc. and Dynamic Embroidery, as you'll find it online. Do not Google IQ Inc. and click that link, because for some reason it brings you to a Viagra website. We're working on that right now. If you want to go to our website and figure out what we're all about, just visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or go to iq-inc.com. Or, I learned from the Howard Stern scandal a long time ago, always buy your own name as a URL. So if you go to brettdumas.com, it'll also bring to my website. And as always, I will plug my son's business, bluebeeapparel.com. My had a birthday last week, 19-year-old entrepreneur
Happy
son.
birthday.
Has been running a business, apparel business, with exclusive drops every couple months. Bluebeeapparel.com, and check out his TikTok, Instagram, and website for more info on that.
Awesome. All right, YouTube world, thank you very much. Episode 19 is in the can.
Peace.
And always, peace. A little late on that.